All right, and we are live. I always assume we're live anyway. Welcome everyone to happy hour number 30. This is a momentous occasion. We're up to the 30s now. And I've got a treat in store this evening. We're going to be talking about one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies ever made. And I am joined in this epic adventure with Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Pleasure to have you on, sir.
It's a great honor to be here. This is the second time we streamed. You are one of my favorite YouTubers. You're one of the people whose videos are every video that you put out, I feel, is essential viewing, especially if anyone enjoys the mechanics of storytelling. You do such a great job of breaking down why some of our favorite movies are that way. And I think more creators might benefit from listening to your sage-like words of storytelling wisdom.
I don't think they would ever admit to it if they did. But no, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And just looking at the screen here, I'm sorry if I look like I've died about 3 weeks ago. I think it's just because on StreamYards, it's got a white background and it just really hits me right in the face. So I can assure my viewers that I'm not dead. Not yet, anyway. If I was going to have any sort of tinge to me, it should really be yellow from the liver cirrhosis. But I'll get there. But yeah. Hopefully we'll put on a good show for everybody who's in chat tonight. Just as a little bit of housekeeping, super chats obviously come in throughout the course of the stream. We'll get to all of them, but we tend to leave them more towards the end just so we don't keep interrupting our discussion. But yeah, otherwise, sit back and enjoy the show, and we're gonna talk a little bit about Alien. Yeah, man. Just thinking about this movie. I'm pretty sure I saw Aliens before I saw Alien. So I was always kind of curious as a kid, how did Ripley get into this situation? Why is she so afraid of these aliens and what the hell happened? And then when I eventually saw the film, I was just blown away by how different it was to Aliens in tone, and two, just how effective a horror movie it was. Man, this movie was something else.
No, and I was just saying to you before we went live, I saw it when it first came out, and I was already a huge movie fanatic, and I was 12 when this film came out. And what I've said to a lot of people, especially people that are younger than me, because I'm ancient, is that a lot of the movies of the late 70s, actually the mid 70s too, starting with things like, Night of the Living Dead back in the 60s, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there were movies that no one had ever seen anything like them before, in terms of the visceral nature of them and just how powerful they were. And Star Wars, as far as science fiction goes, no one had ever seen anything remotely similar to Star Wars. And I think that Alien was the first film that sort of picked up the torch of of making a completely realistic science fiction setting that was utterly believable. And I was going on about verisimilitude, but like you were just pointing out, the cinematography in this movie, the visual effects, everything creates a reality to it within the frame that you've never seen before. And it's unbroken. I mean, I've always maintained that there's only one shot in this movie, a special effect shot, and it's a practical effect shot that's a little wonky. And that's when the chest burster scene happens and you see the creature go across the tabletop.
Yeah,
I think they did it.
Yeah, I think they did the best they could with something like that with practical effects.
Yes,
the legs are conspicuously absent, and you can tell it's just a puppet on a pneumatic sort of piston thing. But it doesn't matter,
No, that's the only shot. I mean, from the opening, the way the camera is creeping around the Nostromo from the opening scene. I mean, and that beautiful opening credit sequence, where you see space looks like space. It doesn't look like you're looking at a matte painting, or it really, the way that the Nostromo is in shadow, or the way that it's just, it starts out and you just believe it. You're dropped into a world that is utterly real, and the camera just creeps around, and it sort of sets the tone of what you're going to see. And one of my favorite things in any movie is the little ostrich that bouncing. It's just pecking into the. I mean, I don't know why that creeps me out, but it's almost like it's been there for how long, and no one's been around because they're in cryo sleep or whatever, and this thing is still just there. just moving.
It truly is a perpetual motion machine.
Yeah.
If you ever wondered how long they go on for, there you go.
And it just, I mean, the way it is so evocative of mood from the get-go. And then this transmission comes in. And I think the only thing that betrays the time in which this movie was made is the readouts, the computer. But it still feels like, because of the way it's shot and all that, that it's you're like, okay, that's just what they have on this ship.
I mean, it reminds me of when you see the kind of flight computers that you get on military jets, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
they're all basic kind of green on black text readouts and stuff. Like, it's all designed to be really rugged, really reliable, and it looks primitive as a result. So I can totally buy into the idea that this is a flight computer for a big hulking commercial vehicle, which
Absolutely.
is what the Nostromo is. And compare when you were talking about the opening there. Absolutely, I love how slow it is. How it just sets up this ship. The camera slowly pans through all these corridors. It's all very industrial. Everything's very worn and solid looking. It just looks very functional. You compare that to the opening of a movie like Star Wars, like A New Hope. It's straight into the action. There's a ship getting attacked and there's explosions and everything. This is the absolute polar opposite, but it wants to set that slow-paced, creepy kind of tone. And straight away you get it. Like that eerie kind of sense of a deserted ship. Like, why is there nobody on board? Like, what's the nature of this? And then obviously you get to see that the crew are in cryo sleep. And even... there's something interesting about the set design when you get into that section of the ship. Everything becomes very rounded and curved and kind of medical-like almost. And that's the kind of area that they're in, the cryo chambers.
Yeah, it's great. And also, there's in the beginning of the film, you see the Nostromo and the refinery that it's towing, and it gives you a little text page of where we are. It sets the stage. But the Nostromo... That it looks like some giant Notre Dame Gothic cathedral, that's being pulled through space. And normally we were so used to seeing sleeker spaceships, even in the 60s with like the Starship Enterprise, or in the 50s with the C-57D and Forbidden Planet. Ships were sleek and they didn't have lots of things on the exterior. But in the case of Alien, I mean, it's like they uprooted some Kazakhstanian oil refinery that's from the, it's just battered to hell, and yet they're dragging this thing through space.
Yeah. Well, and it plays into that idea of like, well, in space there's no air resistance, so you don't have to make anything streamlined. You can make these big hulking ridiculous things and tow them because that's what you can do. It doesn't matter.
No, and we'd never seen that before either. So it added an industrial scale into space, into a space film. And I mean, it doesn't take place in a haunted house, but that might as well have been one. You're looking at like something from the mountains of Carpathia that had just been rocketed into space, and the Nostromo is towing this thing along. And you'd never, again, to my 12-year-old mind, I'm like, what it was so great. I mean, I loved it so much because it was so different from anything you'd ever seen. And I think subtly, without even having to say it, it looks like a haunted house. I mean, It just looks like this haunted mansion, and you kind of don't ever want to go in it. And then, of course, you have to, because then the camera starts creeping around, and then, like you say, it comes to the medical bay, and then it becomes quite beautiful. The symmetry,
it's like dreamlike sequence where they all kind of wake up in slow motion, and it's like the kind of angelic music playing. They start to stir. They take their like monitor things off of them and start to get up. And again, you're made to see that this is not a pleasant process for them. They wake up, they probably feel like shit, and it's not really a fun job that these guys are doing. And then, once they're up and about, they're having breakfast. And that's when you get your first glimpse of who all the different characters are. You get some of the interplay between them. And it's great because the acting feels really natural. The conversations feel very natural. And I've always had the sneaking suspicion that quite a bit of it is ad-libbed. Like a lot of these bits where they're just sitting around the table talking to each other, I think they're just really, shooting the shit. Like, because it just feels too natural to be acting.
I completely agree. And what that immediately does is, we're so used to seeing heroes and villains. And these are just like workaday folks, you know.
Yeah.
They're just doing their job, and they all feel very familiar, and there's nobody there that you know these people. You've seen these people. You pass by them on the street. You know, you've seen them at gas stations filling up their semi trucks, or you've heard these people before, and they're us. You know, they're not like some elite fighting force. They're
They're very much not.
no, and I think immediately it plays into this whole idea that, okay, we're just seeing a bunch of natural blue collar workaday people that are doing their job. And it's funny because we're so conditioned by science fiction films or science fiction literature that we're going to meet some kind of special people. Like the hero will rise kind of a thing. And these people seem like the furthest thing from it. These are just workaday folks, just like we are. And yet they're dragging this haunted house through space and, you know, just doing it's their job. It's just their job. You know, they're not doing it because I love space and this is my dream.
Yeah. I think Ridley Scott likened them to like truck drivers in space. Yeah. That's what they are, just long haul truck drivers.
That's
just
it.
Doing the job.
And oil workers, you know.
Yeah, and bitching at each other about their bonus situation. You know, Parker and Brett, like the two engineers, they're like the lowest ranked members of the crew, and they want more money. Just like the kind of things that people do complain about in their jobs, and
right,
it just makes it really real. And I like the fact that with this cast, you know, nobody is traditionally heroic or traditionally good looking, like you were saying there. They all just look like kind of regular people.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing this movie does that it's so refreshing to see is, you know, you have Ripley and you have Lambert. You have two women that are part of the crew. Yaphet Kotto, Parker's just a black dude. Nobody makes any big deal of it. These are all people that are supposed to be there. There's no mention. No one ever talks about. I mean, they make sex jokes to one another, you know, and you get the idea that
the women laugh along with it. You know,
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Parker's like, right now I want to eat something else, but food will do. You know, and he looks over at Lambert like, you know, they've been hooking up occasionally because when you're on a giant space vessel and you can, why not? Who cares? Yeah. And you get that naturalistic banter. And these guys, I mean, and girl, they work together. They're able to talk this way because that's what people do in situations like this. That's how they talk to one another. And again, it's so refreshing to watch this now because all of the kind of political leanings we're seeing in movies never feels realistic. It's like, let's stop and have a conversation about, I don't know, rights and feelings. Nobody ever does that in real life.
No, that's why, you know, a lot of the time they don't know how to write characters nowadays because they're trying to shoehorn in all this extra stuff that like no real person would ever talk about. Whereas, the banter in this is very much the kind of shit that people talk about in real life. You know, just working stuff. You know, that they're complaining about their situation. They're bored. They're tired. They all feel like crap because they just woke up out of hypersleep. Just all stuff like that. You know, very real. I love to see them smoking as well. God, you know,
me too.
I know it kills you, but it's so cool to see people doing it in movies.
I agree. I mean, you know, smoking is a way people would use to calm their nerves. It was habitual, and you figure like in the future they probably have ways to take care of. You don't have to worry about lung cancer anymore because you take a pill or a shot or drop some nanobots in your system, and they just clear out the cancer cells, so it's no big deal. And I believe that smoking in the future will probably come back when you have that technology.
Safe smoking,
and they'll have like some great organic tobacco they're smoking. And I agree with you. I love seeing people, and especially inside a spaceship. You know,
where it's like sealed environment. Yeah,
it's like Russians in a submarine. They're smoking away. They don't care.
But you know, it's totally how people would wake up in a situation like that. You know, they've got the coffee, they've got the nicotine. You know, once you get all that stuff flowing through your system, like, okay, I'm ready to like take on my duties now. And so that's when I was going to say as well, the interesting thing is that there's no particular focus on Ripley in the early stages of the movie. She is just one of the other characters. If anything, it's more focused on probably Kane and Ash. For some reason, there's a lot of shots of Ash just looking at people, which is interesting. Like, you know,
because you don't know.
No,
You know, you
no.
don't, and they just, it's if you don't know the movie, you just think, oh, it's because he looks the most of all of them. He's the most militaristic. His outfit is the cleanest. You know, it's tucked in. He doesn't have facial hair. His hair is on his head is not mussed. You know, he looks like
Yeah.
he's the straight and buttoned up chap that's really into military protocol or whatever.
Yeah, he's
And
the science officer, so but he's British and he's kind of a little bit prim and proper, in the
yes,
way he presents himself. He's very polite to everyone, but he's a bit cold with people. You can tell that Parker absolutely doesn't like him.
right.
He's always quite like, oh, you're in my seat, or like when he goes to do something, like Ash will offer to help him. He's like, no, I can do it by myself.
Right.
It's just you get those little bits of tension between certain people because Ash being the science officer and Parker being an engineer, like they are polar opposites in terms of crew rankings and stuff and backgrounds. So
No,
just little things like
absolutely.
that are quite cool.
And I also love that like Parker and Brett, they've kind of got stubble, scrub. They look dirty. You know, they
Yeah.
look like their clothes because why? They're engineers on this giant oil derrick in space, so it's not like we're just gonna go get grubby and dirty anyway. So especially,
Everybody looks like they haven't washed their clothes in like months.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They just
absolutely.
wear the same shit every day because why not? Who cares?
Yeah, and Harry Dean Stanton, he's just got that hang dog expression. It looks like, he's probably smoked 10,000 cigarettes in his life, and his wife left him long ago. His dog left him, and he's he's kind of like, yeah, I'll go on a long space voyage, make some money, and he probably comes back and gambles at the track or goes to
100%.
Vegas.
Harry Dean Stanton, I swear that dude was born old. Because I
Right.
remember him, he was in Kelly's Heroes, right? And
Yep.
that was like 15, 20 years earlier, and he looked exactly the same. Like, I swear he never aged because he was always old to begin with.
Yeah. And then
just
you've
a great character actor, though. Like, exactly who you'd want in a movie like this.
Absolutely. And then John Hurt is his British counterpart. It's almost like they look like brothers in a way.
Yeah.
and I just the interplay between like Brett and Parker, they can finish each other's sentences, and they've been working together for probably since they were born. Like you said, they came out of the same womb, and they were like fixing their child's toys, and now they're on long space voyages 50 years later or whatever.
Yeah. It's great. So, great cast of characters. Just all of them are quite interesting, and you get a pretty good sense of who everyone is fairly quickly.
Yes.
Which again is, it's a hallmark of good writing, and it's a hallmark of good casting. When you kind of recognize people pretty quickly, you understand what their relationship is with each other, and what everyone's about. And I think this movie delivers that really well.
And another thing that this does too, and I don't even know if genre filmmakers are capable of doing this anymore, but we've seen the ship before the crew woke up. We saw the ship receive a message. Something happened. Something came in, and it's not like somebody walks on and goes, well, here, dun dun dun, here's the message. It presupposes intelligence on the part of the audience in that everything is, you don't have to like hammer it home. We already understand that something occurred. And as the situation unfolds, it's done in a very naturalistic, almost Robert Altman-esque way, where he had people talking over one another. When Dallas comes out and presents the information, everyone's like, well, where are we? Are we close to Earth or whatever? No, we're outside of Zeta Reticuli or whatever. That information is presented in again, a very naturalistic way where you have to pay attention to what's all being said here. And it
comes in two parts, doesn't it? Because first of all, he's summoned to go and speak to the central computer of the ship called Mother.
Yes. Yep.
So he does that. And, all throughout this movie, there's loads of procedures that people have to go through to work this ship. He has to like punch in a bunch of codes and get this like weird like circuit board thing that he plugs in, and then he can like enter into the room and all that stuff. Like, it's just a bunch of things, and it gives you a sense of like, this is a complex ship to control.
Right. And again, what I love about the production design, you've seen the ship very industrial. You've seen the quote unquote medical area, which is much more like hermetically I guess sealed with the cryo chambers, and then you see the med bay later. It's all very white and clean. It looks clinical. And then when you go into the bowels of Mother, we've seen something like that similar in 2001, where Hal had sort of the bowels of how you slide in all those, whatever they are, memory things. And this with Mother, with all it looks like I don't know, the inside of some kind of futuristic disco in a way.
Yeah.
And it just looks very different. It looks like you're inside a brain. Like you're seeing that you've descended literally into the brain of the ship, and there's all these neurons surrounding you, and then there's this interface. And again, it just creates more of this milieu, the believability of this whole universe. And it's like, okay, now we're in the brains of the ship, and there is procedure. You can't just walk into the brains of the ship without doing some things. Not everybody can just go sit down and interface with Mother. And
Yeah.
it just creates more of that believability. So you're being brought into this, and it's just so interesting. And like you pointed out, the procedural nature of all this, they didn't have to do that. They could have just sat down and started typing. But because there's this business happening, you're like, oh, these people know their jobs. They know how the ship works. They know what to do. And they are, even though they seem like, they're blue collar workers, these people are professionals. They really know what they're doing. They don't do things half-assed, really. They know how to run this gigantic, mechanized, huge, vast ship. And there's only 7 of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same when they're on the bridge, and because I love the fact that they go and have breakfast and stuff before they actually check the status of the ship. But once they've done all that, they go and plug into the navigation system. So they're like, oh, we should be arriving at Earth anytime now. And then they're looking around nope, there's nothing familiar around here. And you keep getting Ripley going, that's not our system.
Yeah.
Where are we?
And then Lambert's like, I know that.
Yeah.
Quit bitching at me.
Yeah,
I
just a
get
little
it.
bit of tension. But it's obviously, she's the navigator, so it's her job to figure out where they actually are. And so you get a sense of what her role is. And again, just more procedures. They're all scanning their computers and everything. And they figure out, they're only halfway home to Earth. And they've ended up in somewhere completely different. They don't understand why. And that's when Dallas comes in and explains to them, Mother's intercepted a transmission coming from some uncharted planet. Our contract stipulates we have to go and check it out, in case it's intelligent life. And I love how Parker's just no, I don't want to do that. If you want to pay me extra money, I'll go do it. And that's when Ash steps in. And again, it's the dialogue is amazing because there's people talking over each other, and there's just the kind of things that happen in real conversations. And he has to request, to Dallas, the captain, to let him speak. Because Parker keeps talking over him because Parker's got no respect for him. And that's when he says, the penalty is that we forfeit all of our shares if we don't go and do this. So you get no money.
I love that. No money. And that's another thing is that the acting in this film, all these characters do have these little quirks and the way they speak and the gestures they make. And again, this was Ridley Scott's second feature after The Duelists. And you're watching this, and these actors, I mean, like you said, I think that Ridley Scott must have allowed these actors a lot of improv because there's so much naturalism in the way this is shot. And I think, I don't know if they workshopped this movie. I'll have to go back and watch the documentary again in the Alien Anthology Blu-ray set, but it just feels like that Scott trusted these actors to bring this kind of naturalism, because really none of the dialogue, they have to convey the plot points. But all the rest of the stuff and the way they did it really seems like it's an actor's workshop, that it's almost like they're doing improv all the way through the movie because it does feel so real.
But what's great about it is that you really get the sense that these people know each other, and they've been around each other for a long time. Sometimes when actors try to do that kind of thing, it's really stiff and awkward because they don't know each other. They've just been brought together to do this movie, and they can't really bounce off each other the way friends do. But you absolutely get that with this. They feel like people that have worked with each other for years. And so they're just really easy with each other.
And I think what else is happening here is I like all of these people. Like I feel like, oh, once they find out they're halfway home, we the audience is like, oh man, that sucks. Like
Yeah.
it sucked you in and made you as an audience. You like these people, and you realize what a bummer that would be, because you realize this ship, there's no amenities there. It's not like you can go out, get a drink at the bar. There's nowhere to go. You're stuck on this gothic cathedral in space, and when you get out of the cryo chambers, you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be halfway home, because then you have to get back in them again. And you feel that I feel the audience really is with these people. You understand what's going on. You're like, oh, they have to go check out a signal, because of course they do. It's called Alien. We have to get there, of course. But you like them, all of them, even though they bitch and moan. It's like going to a dinner where your extended family's there, and you see your crazy uncle that you hate, but really you love him because he's your uncle. It's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and yeah, so Dallas comes in and he explains to them that they have to go to this planet. They reluctantly decide that they're going to go, and you get again another quite lengthy sequence where you get to see what the ship has to do in order to land on this place.
Yeah,
they've got this signal. They find out roughly where it is. They have to undock from the massive refinery thing. They have to bring the Nostromo down. It's all very there's lots of procedures going on. They're all having to work together. You see how they cooperate with each other, and it feels like a commercial crew landing a jet liner or something like that. It's very very complex what they have to do.
Yeah, and the size of it, and I love when they approach LV-426 and they do things like, it's one of my favorite effect shots in any movie. You're from very, very far away, and you're looking and you see the dwarfed Nostromo passing one of the moons, and it's conveying a sense of scope and scale to this, that even though this gigantic refinery looks so huge, I mean, it's dwarfed by the infinitude of the cosmos. It's a speck of sand, and then they bring you back to reality, realizing this behemoth of a ship. I mean, this is not like some shuttlecraft that's going to land. This thing is this gigantic. Even the Nostromo, the towing, which is it's a tugboat. They're working on a tugboat, and this thing, even that they have to land it on this rocky terrain, and the landing gear gets messed up, and there's steam, and it's not an easy procedure. And you realize this is terrible what these guys have to do. It's like this is not meant to happen every day, and it's not an easy thing just landing on this planet to go check it out. And you can feel, just by watching what happens, you feel as the audience like, well, this sucks. There's nothing good about this for them.
Yeah, I mean, the couple of people are pointing out in chat as well, for a movie made in 1979, apart from the one or two little shots like you mentioned where they had to rocket the little puppet alien across the desk, the actual special effects shots of the ship and everything they really haven't aged that badly. The bit where the Nostromo is coming down to land, it's obviously shot in near darkness, so you've got the floodlights, and it really gives you a sense of how complex this procedure is, but it hides probably the fact that it's a miniature, obviously, on a crane that they were bringing in. But it looks fantastic. It looks great. The ship looks amazing. The shots of it coming in it's very slow and ponderous, but it all looks convincing. It never took me out of the movie in the slightest.
No, and you feel that this thing is the metal it feels like a giant. It feels like things that we know on Earth. Like one of the things that anybody who's been on a cruise ship or who's seen a military vessel, I mean, these things are big, and even the nuts and bolts used to put these things together are huge. They're just because they have to be seafaring and they have to deal with the pressure of what it's like to be at sea. This feels like that, the way the metal is creaking and everything is, and that's what I love. This is, I don't know if people, the effects team on this movie really understood. It was Brian Johnson, who later went on, he did Space 1999, but he went on to be the visual effects supervisor of Empire Strikes Back. They really understood how to create the reality of things. And now because everything's CG, I don't know if they could do what they did. I don't know if they could make it look like it looks in this movie, because they did it for real. They did it, all the particulate matter that's blowing through they probably had big fans and were throwing sand and dirt and crap so it would blow across the camera
but
lens.
Isn't it so much more satisfying to watch than CGI?
Yes.
And I've said this before, like it's the same if you watch like Star Wars or Star Trek when ships explode. It's just a miniature that they put pyrotechnics inside, but it's so much more satisfying to watch than CGI.
Well, I think because we know, our minds know what it's like to live in the real world. We know what things are supposed to look like. And no matter how great your CG is, it doesn't quite look real, even the very best CG.
Yeah.
And when you really blow something up and they slow it down, you can tell that, because maybe it's the random nature of the way pieces would fly off in the middle of an explosion or something. But like you said, it's just so satisfying, and you believe it. You just believe it.
I think for me the big difference is that there's no weight behind CGI effects. There's no sense of like real physicality to it, because you just know it's all just like computer generated. Like when you see these miniatures landing on this planet, like you say, all it's the whole sound stage that they had to land it on. They've got dust blowing around. It just looks so much better. It's more satisfying to watch.
And it's also, this is clearly, even the shapes of the rocks and things, this is not on Earth. You actually believe that they have landed on some rocky, terrible hole in the wall planet that they're not supposed to be on. Like, human beings are not supposed to be on this planet.
They do, once they've landed, they obviously damage their ship in the process of landing. You get that great scene with Parker and Brett where they're reporting the damage, and it's like, how long is it going to take to repair? And Brett's like, tell them 17 hours. And then Parker's like, at least 25 hours.
Right.
He's not gonna hurry up for these assholes,
No.
But yeah, they're doing a scan of the planet, and it's like, it's basically the most hostile place you can imagine. Like it's just a rocky, barren wastelands. It's like minus 200 degrees or something. It's just completely inhospitable to life.
And there's no, and they don't make it look like we're on this beautiful planet. There's no matte painting with a sky and an atmosphere. Even the miniature vistas are totally believable, and it just looks like the worst place you've ever wanted to be in your life. Like, I don't ever want to go to LV-426. There's no reason to be there. I don't want to walk outside. You're in a 200-mile-an-hour sandstorm. There's nothing good about being here. And what I love about all of this, all of this is creating, again, in the audience, this just overall sense of dread.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing here that's good. There's nothing that's happened. The ship's broken now. The Parker and Brett are in the bowels. The grease is dripping off the ceiling. Steam is everywhere. It's probably 120 degrees in the bowels of that ship. Yeah. They're having a horrible time. And it's just, you feel clenched up when you're watching this. And one of the things that this movie looked incredible in a theater. I saw it in a gigantic theater the first time, and it really was enveloping. And you kind of scrunched down. And I remember my 12-year-old self was like, don't go out on this planet. I didn't even know what was going to happen, because there was no internet back then. I'm watching this, and on one hand, I've never seen anything like this. I'm so engrossed in what's happening. But on the other hand, I was kind of cowering, like, oh, this is not going to be good, because you realize if this is the tone of the movie, you're used to seeing like alien creatures there was nothing so relentlessly realistic in a science fiction movie before than this. Even Star Wars, it's like wacky robots and Jawas and Tusken Raiders and laser guns and blasters and lightsabers and all that. This had none of that. This had no genre fun tropes like, where's everyone's phasers? There's no communicators. There was no, it's radio, and it's video signals that are being degraded because of the atmospheric conditions. And it was so different than any other science fiction film up to this point, because you absolutely believe what's going on. There was none of those little genre tropes that make you go, oh, cool, I'm watching a science fiction movie. This stripped all of that away.
And the great thing is, like, all throughout this movie, the crew act like real adults.
Yes.
Remember when characters did that? And they didn't act like 14-year-old children who were just driven by like emotions, and they would fly off the handle at the slightest thing. Like, they make, for the most part, there's a few things that we'll get to, but they make smart decisions and they respond to the threat that they're facing in a rational, logical way.
Right, and everybody's doing their jobs. You realize they're good at what they do, even though they're idiosyncratic and all that. They're still, working. They're not working in the most hospitable of environments anyway. But like you said, how refreshing. These people feel like they're real people, and there's never a moment where you're like, I don't believe that.
Yeah. All throughout it, and that, like you said, that adds to the authenticity, which adds to the fear factor. Because it's like these people are facing a genuine threat that they don't know how to combat. So yeah, it's a great way of building that tension throughout the film. So they've landed and they're going to go out and investigate the source of this transmission, I believe, and it's going to be Dallas and Lambert and Kane that go on the scouting party. So you get that great sequence where it switches to the video feeds from their helmets to probably counteract the fact that, they're working on a sound stage and, they've got a miniature in the background that they're trying to look at. But when you see it through a hazy video camera, it looks 100% convincing. The signal's all crappy and cutting out. And, but you get the sense of like them slowly closing in on this giant crashed spaceship off in the distance.
Well, and another choice here, which again, when I saw this, I just loved it. The spacesuits, the Giger-esque, biomechanical-esque, they look like diving bells from the first time people went underwater. Those big metal diving bells with the one porthole that you would look through. Yeah. I mean, these they look different than any other. They're certainly not NASA issue white spacesuits that you'd land on the moon on. I mean, these things, they have weighted boots, and they look oppressive, and they're metal. They look like they're armor plated. It almost looks like you're looking at medieval armor that also happens to be a spacesuit.
Yeah, and it's probably designed for like going outside and repairing the ship if there's damage to the hull or something. So yeah, it's all basic. It's functional. It's solid looking. Again, it's exactly what you would issue to a crew of roughneck type guys, which is what you're dealing with here. Not like scientists or anything like that. Just people that need practical, simple, functional equipment.
Yeah, and I love another thing they add is whenever somebody breathes, you see this like gas is being expelled from the top of the spacesuits, and it just adds to the steampunk. There's stuff happening all, like, they didn't have to do that, but because they do, it just adds to the fact that there's mechanisms happening. It's not some all-purpose spacesuit that's going to protect you from all of the elements. No, this is something that it's a pain in the ass to be in this thing. It's just at every step probably is laborious because it's so heavy to walk, even on a planet that has less gravity than Earth.
Yeah. But they do eventually close in on this thing. It's kind of intercut with Ripley looking at this transmission on the ship. Again, not a huge amount of time for her as a character. She doesn't really come off as anything special. She's just another person doing her job. But she's got a kind of suspicion about this transmission that there's more to it than that. And interestingly, Ash keeps trying to dissuade her from really doing anything. He doesn't want her to go out after them because they've been gone for a long time.
Right.
Obviously, you find out why later on. But it's just like subtle little moments like that are really good. But I love the design of the alien ship as well. It just looks so weird. Like, you look at it and you're like, I don't fully understand what I'm looking at here.
Right.
It doesn't conform to any sort of design I could imagine.
It almost looks, again, like this biomechanical, because you had different designers. You had like Mobius, the comic art of Mobius. You had Ron Cobb, who was designing like the spaceships and stuff. And then you have H.R. Giger, who was responsible for things like the alien derelict and everything in it, the space jockey, the xenomorph, and all this. So even the design sensibilities as you move through the film change, and when you get to that thing, you don't know, is it a seed pod? Like, what is it? It doesn't look like any kind of a ship you've ever seen before, and it's got like the ports to go in are vaguely vagina-like.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's
definitely a sexual component to this movie.
Oh yeah,
that you get throughout the whole thing, like the life cycle of the alien and stuff. It's all kind of fucked up reverse procreation and stuff.
Yeah, and when you look at the ship, it's like, what is this, an internal organ from something that's been flying around? I mean, it's so. And another, again, that's when you see that derelict ship, the word alien is so great because, you know, we've seen up to that point, we hadn't seen movies like E.T. yet. Aliens were, you know, usually men in suits, you know, something that was this, you know, right away that, oh, okay, I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, now we know, looking back from 40 plus years, but at the time, I have to stress, no one had ever seen anything like this before. No one had ever seen some kind of a depiction of an alien craft like this. This didn't look anything that human beings would design or even understand. And like you pointed out, you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's like, is this the front end? Is this the back end of it? I don't know. But it doesn't matter because that's the point. It's thoroughly alien. You're not meant to understand it. It's this just strange, otherworldly craft that's crash landed on this planet. And it carries over to when they make their way through the corridors and they see the space jockey, which I love because, you know, I don't get the impression this movie was made on a huge budget, but like they had this massive, extravagant set of like the camera just pans out and you've got the skeleton collapsed against this thing that looks like a giant laser gun or something. You don't even know what it is.
Right, like a cannon of some kind.
Yeah, but it's just
inside. It's inside.
Yes.
It's not like it's not a gunner's station on the exterior of the ship. Like this is in the middle of the ship. And another thing, since we saw the beginning of the cameras creeping through the Nostromo, we really understand what human engineering looks like. We've seen what humans would build, but this is, again, it looks like it might have grown. Even the weird like cables or the floor of this thing looks like it was like it from the bottom of the sea. Like what is this? Like you don't know. And the entire design of the ship is so not of our world.
And don't you just love the fact that, like, you know, you see the space jockey, you never get an explanation for what it is, where it came from, what it was trying to do, or anything like that. You just know this thing got killed in a horrific way because it exploded from the inside, which is obviously what you'll find out later. But that was enough. And the mystery of what this thing was and where it came from was so much more interesting than whatever crappy explanation that Ridley Scott could come up with like 30 years later.
Oh, I mean, one of the great things about this too is it harks back to like H.P. Lovecraft's book. And I love the fact that this movie basically says that there are things in the cosmos that are unknowable. Humanity is never going to know the answers. They're beyond us. And maybe one day we'll encounter these people or wherever this thing came from, but not today. And the fact that it's funny, these astronauts they're looking around. They don't have time to marvel at this. They're not scientists. You know, they're blue collar workers that work on their oil derrick in space. And they're looking at all this stuff and they're not going like, oh my God, look at this. This is amazing. We have proof that there's alien life in the universe. They're not like that at all.
Yeah.
They're just like, we need to find the signal and get the hell out of here.
Yeah. But that's enough it's enough to touch on this stuff from the viewer's point of view to create the mystery of like, oh wow, you know, this advanced alien race looks like something horrible happened to them and they crash landed on this planet.
Yep, and that's us. That's what we're thinking. And what I love about that is the movie is we're marveling at all this as an audience, but the story that we're following is still with these people that just have to get this job done. But we're like, wait, what? Stop on this. Let's tell us what this is.
Yeah.
And from an audience perspective, we're never going to get those answers either. And I love that. I love it. It's so good because you're just sitting there as an audience member marveling at all this, looking around going, oh my God. And again, you've never seen, back in 1979, you'd never seen anything like this ever in any science fiction or horror film. It had never been depicted like this because we don't even know it. Like, you're looking at the space jockey. Where does the creature that's sitting in this thing begin and end? You don't even know that. What is this? Is it humanoid? It's got this what?
The thing that always puzzled me, right, is like there's like a nozzle or a hose thing that comes out of its face that goes right down the spine of its body. So it looks like its head is turned 180 degrees.
Yeah.
It looks like that should be its spinal column going out the back of its skull. It's so fucking alien. I don't understand.
And that was what was also so great is it's kind of really cool, but it's also gross at the same time. Is it like some insectoid thing? Like, what is it?
Someone in chat's just said that's its penis. Who knows? Maybe it is. In which case, man, it's well hung. Anyway, yeah. So Kane is the one who discovers like a hole in the floor leading down to like the lower levels of the ship. So they lower him down there, and he emerges into this enormous chamber filled with eggs.
Which again, oh my God! That seeing that you see how vast this ship is. The sense of scope and scale. They use master shots here where these gigantic, I know it's a matte painting and all that and all, but it's so great. You're looking at it, and this tiny, tiny astronaut is descending down this rope with his one little light illuminating this. And again, the vastness of this, the scale of it is enormous.
I don't know about you, man. There's no fucking way I'd be going down there.
No way. No,
I'll get a drone or something and fly that in there. I'm not going down there.
No,
but Kane is he's very much like he's really passionate about this. He really wants to discover the secrets of this place. Out of everyone, I think he's the most fired up about it because he keeps pushing them on to keep exploring and to go deeper into this ship. Whereas the rest of them are starting to get second thoughts about it. I love how Lambert's just like, let's just get out of here, shall we?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then you've got Ash going, you have to go on. You must go on, push forward.
Yeah, that's Kane. That's Kane who's like that because he's so excited about getting close to this spaceship. He's like, we have to keep pushing on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he goes down there and that's where you see all the eggs everywhere. And who knows how many years they've been sat there. Like this ship has been crashed for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that you don't know what it is at first, but it's an egg chamber. We all know that. But there's thousands of eggs in this thing. And they're big eggs too. Mm-hmm. And when you see, we know as human beings, we know what eggs are. And the fact that they went with an egg shape. So I'm sure someone said, we would like people to understand right away what these are.
Yeah.
And it just increased the dread. Like, oh no. I was thinking, no, don't go there.
I know, yeah, because it's the classic thing, like the young woman who hears like a sound coming in the basement and she goes down there, like, you just don't go, you're gonna get fucking killed.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, but he goes in and one of the eggs opens up and he's like, he leans over it, and I just the way this is shot is so good because it really draws out the moment before this thing bursts out.
Well, how about the way it opens? I mean, talking about something that's vaginal or something that's dealing with reproductive, it's already an egg, but then it opens up and you see that it's again, the visual effects, the practical effects here, the way they have the when the egg opens almost like a flower, it blooms. And when you're looking at the petals look like muscles. They've got like sinew in them, and then you see it's almost like you get an egg that has a developing chick in it, and you can see it pulsating.
Moving. Yeah,
it's just so you're like, it's revolting, but in a good way.
I mean, again, all the creature effects in this are so well done. Like later on when they look at the facehugger and it's died and they turn it over, and it really, all this stuff that's in it, I'm sure they used like oysters and stuff inside it because it looks really organic. It looks really real. It doesn't look like a piece of latex or anything.
No. And same was true of these eggs.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that people don't understand this, especially I see filmmakers, makeup effects work monster effects work, it's all about the lighting. You have to understand how to light these things, because a lot of times it's the lighting that gives away the latex nature of the creatures. And when Stan Winston directed his first movie, he directed Pumpkinhead, the movie Pumpkinhead, which is, okay film, but the pumpkin creature effects were great because he knew how to light his effects to not betray that, these are just foam latex creatures. And I think Alien, in my estimation, it has some of the best practical makeup effects, creature effects work ever done, ever. Maybe the best in history. The 2001 of creature effects or something, because they're absolutely convincing.
Yeah. I mean, the design of the alien as a creature effect is just like it's like the stuff of nightmares. The sort of thing you would never have thought of until you see it on screen, and it's like, oh my god, this thing is just so different from anything we could have imagined before.
And again, H.R. Giger, the Swiss, or he's Swedish, the Swedish fantasist. If you go back and you look at his paintings, it's Hieronymus Bosch meets Hellraiser. I mean, and the biomechanoid. I don't know where it all came from, but it's so singular. His vision is so singular that, I mean, I can imagine Ridley Scott being in art school or something. What a genius move to go get this artist, to not only hire him, but bring him on, and he's sculpting these things and he's making them in 3D for you, 3 dimensions. And it was such a great idea to go get him, because, you could have hired designers that had worked on other movies, but the fact that they went and hired this insane Swedish artist was a brilliant conceit on the part of the crew of this film. I don't know maybe it was Ridley Scott, I would imagine, but man, we were seeing something no one had ever seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, obviously Kane makes the classic mistake of like the egg opens up and he just leans over like, oh, what could this mean? And then you just get that whoosh, right onto his helmet.
And like you said, they draw out the moment, and you're just sitting there. No, don't do that. And you literally are cringing in your seat. Please don't do that. He's going to do it. But then and it's done really, really slowly. Like you said, he draws out the moment. He peers over this thing, and then, like you pointed out, when it actually happens, it throws you in the back of it's jarring, it's scary, it's a jump scare. You're thrown back in your seat, and you're like, "Wah!"
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
This movie doesn't make a huge use of jump scares, but when it does it, it's very effective. It's never labored and it's never overdone.
And they don't have music building up to a jump scare either.
Yeah,
it's sound
design. That cheap thing. Yeah. So like the real terror of this is just the general like feeling of this thing being loose aboard their ship and never knowing where it's going to be next. But yeah, so there was a weird thing I noticed about this as well, and I don't know if they shot it this way upside down or something, but when the egg first opens and he's looking at it, the camera goes in very close, and there's stuff dripping off it, but it seems to drip up the way for some reason.
Yeah, I love that. Again, it's just something that puts you off kilter. I just assume it had to do with the gravity of but that's just a little detail. It's an extra detail. It's so creepy that it does that. And it's great. But yeah, I love that. I love that it's dripping upward. Like, why is it doing that? That's just, again, it's something subtle that just makes you more like, ugh.
Yeah. So he's taken down by this thing, whatever it is. You don't get to see it initially, and he's brought back to the ship. And he's, Dallas and Lambert are trying to get on board. They're stuck in the airlock, and Ripley won't let them on board because he's got this thing attached to his face, and like the protocol says they can't bring it on because it could infect everyone with whatever this thing is. And it's Ash who lets them in, obviously, because he's got an interest in doing that.
I loved her. Sigourney Weaver has, like, when she's pleading to not do this, she drops her voice and she's like, we could all die. If there's something wrong, we could all die. Like, she tries to change her tactic up and appeal in an almost, in a motherly fashion. She's trying to say, look, I understand. She was up here like, no, 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 don't do this. And she's like, look, we can't do this because we could all die. And I love that subtlety in her performance, how she changes it up and
Well,
tries to appeal in a different way, and it doesn't work.
Sigourney Weaver is a genius bit of casting in this movie because she always plays Ripley pitch perfect. She never comes across as, hysterical or over emotional or anything, but she's not cold and unfeeling either. She is a rational, smart, motivated person who's trying to make the best decisions they can in the circumstances, and you never feel irritated with her. No. Every time she makes a decision, you think, yep, that's probably what I would do in that situation. That makes sense, totally. And that's such a difficult thing to do with a character like this.
And again, it comes back to writing. It comes back down to performance and directing and really understanding what you were trying to do here. From scene to scene, there's not a scene in this movie that ever betrays it. It all works so well together. Yeah. And you never feel like, again, they never sacrifice the natural. It always feels what you're watching is so immediate and so real. And it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that, to create that kind of a tone and sustain it, especially in a fantasy film, science fiction, horror, or fantasy. It's really tough to do.
Yep. And what's important as well to note is that, there's an opposite side to the argument there about whether or not to let them in that if they don't, then Kane could die.
Yeah.
And so it's do we risk everyone to try and save this man, or do we sacrifice him to keep the rest of the crew safe? So it's not just an easy decision that there's a clearly right or wrong answer for. It's just a matter of your perspective, really. And obviously Ash just takes the decision out of her hands by opening the inner hatch and letting them in. Because he wants the alien on board,
right?
And so, they bring him in, and then you get the scene in Medbay where they cut the helmet off, and then you get to see the facehugger for the first time. And God, this thing just looks fucking horrible. Like, it's brightly with lighting. It's brightly lit. It's against that white background, and you see the facehugger's tail tighten around his neck. And again, it's one of the great physical monster effects like ever done. It's breathing the bladders. It's not breathing too much. It's subtle. The thing looks absolutely real. Yeah.
And it's so revolting. And and again, the idea of the fingers, the digitals on its face, and even again, everything that's happening in this movie, it could not be more revolting or more horrible.
Like, it looks like an octopus that's latched itself onto him. It's that kind of thing. Like I wouldn't have wanted to be John Hurt with that thing on my face. Put it that way.
No. And again, it's and I remember again, I hark back to when I first saw this because I never saw there was nothing ever in a movie like this before. And it was terrifying. I was like 12 years old. I'm like, I can't imagine something worse than this. And then they do the X-ray, and you see that it's stuck a whole thing down his throat. Yeah. It's just the most horrible thing I can possibly imagine. You can see like bot fly videos on YouTube when people get those bot fly larvae in their skin, and somebody has to go pull them out. I mean, those are just little tiny larvae. They've bored into your skin, and somebody has to pull these things out, and you're looking at them going, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. And this is like a giant bot fly on your face.
Yeah,
I can't imagine something worse.
And so, they're looking at this thing. They can see that it's got this tube down his throat that's feeding him oxygen. And Dallas takes the decision to try and remove it from him. So they try to cut it off, and that's when you get the acid scene, where it's great because it's again a practical effect where they spilled, I guess, real acid on some kind of easily corroded surface. It goes right through, and they're like, oh shit, it's going to go right down to the bottom of the ship and eat through the hull.
Right, explosive decompression or something.
Yeah, totally. So they're running down through all the different decks, and they're like, oh shit, it's gone down to the next deck, and eventually it stops, I think, because it runs out of, chemical energy, I suppose.
Yeah. But again, it's like if this thing wasn't bad enough, it bleeds highly corrosive acid that can eat through the hull of a ship.
Yeah. Well, it's like Parker says, it's got a wonderful defense mechanism because you don't dare to kill it.
Don't dare kill it. And how are you going to get this off his face? You
Yep.
can't cut it off anymore. I mean, again, the peril just it's worse and worse and
Yeah.
worse.
And so, man, they're stuck with this thing on him. They don't know what to do. They've got a crippled ship that they have to try and repair. There's a great scene with Ripley and Parker and Brett when they're down in the bowels of the ship, like working on it. And again, they're bitching about the bonus situation, and Ripley just says, "Don't worry, Parker, you'll get whatever's coming to you."
Yeah, it's great. You'll get whatever's coming to you. I love
But
the way she says that too.
but then he says something like, "What? I can't hear you," and she just goes like, "Why don't you just fuck off?" And then she turns and walks away.
It's fantastic. And again, you know, they all of these moments are just adding up to creating that the realism of the situation. It's not like you're watching a movie. I mean, even though you are, it doesn't have the. It's like there is score in this movie, but the score is not. It's not some melodic, overly overbearing score. They actually temp tracked music from a different Jerry Goldsmith score into this movie. It's I forget oh god, I forget the name of the score, but because they use it in the temp track and they just kept it. So
Right. Okay.
Jerry Goldsmith did write the score for this film, but they used his music, and I want to say it's like Schizo, but it's not. It's some of his name, I forget. But the music it's fantastic. It's more along the lines of what Kubrick did in The Shining than say Star Wars or something. And it's just, Freud. That's what it is. Somebody in the chat says Freud. That's right. It was Freud. Goldsmith's score for Freud, which was so beautifully done.
Yeah. So you've got you've got this going on. There's a couple of scenes between Ripley and Ash because there's a real tension between these characters all throughout the movie, even before you realize what Ash really is all about.
Right.
He's always irritated whenever she asks him questions. Like it's almost like he sees her as the threat because she seems to have more of a questioning sort of nature about her. She doesn't just take things that he says at face value. She's like, well, why is that? What's going on here? And you can see how annoyed he is. Like he always tries to dissuade her from getting involved in whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
She tries to like pull rank on him in the med bay because she's like, you really shouldn't have let them in here because I'm ranking officer when Dallas and Kane are off the ship. And he's like, I forgot. What can you do?
Right. Right. And it just seems another thing that it just seems like these two characters just don't like each other much. Like Kane is like a prig. He seems snooty. Like we've bought into the fact that he's some a Brit that's thinks he's better than everyone else. And Ripley's like, look, like I'm the warrant officer on this ship. I need to know what's going on here. I need you to give me a straight answer. We have to be on the same page. Otherwise things can get really fucked up. Like, why are you being this way? And you have no idea. I love that we have no idea that Ash is anything but this science officer that seems a little snooty and stuck up.
Yeah.
I love
because
that.
Generally he seems quite helpful and he's always very like, although you can tell he's annoyed with Ripley and he doesn't want to help her, he's very polite to everyone.
Yes.
Compared to a lot of the other guys who are just working class guys who are much more gruff and abrasive, he's the guy who like would, happily get up and give his chair to you if you wanted to sit down or whatever, but
yeah, he's like from some posh family in London.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably went to Oxford, something like that. But now he's looking for adventure in outer space by being a science officer.
Yeah. So I think I'm trying to remember, did they take off first and that's when the facehugger detaches from Kane, or does it detach first and then they lift off? I think they probably lift off first because they want to get off the planet.
Yeah, they that's what they do. They lift off first.
Right, yeah. Because they at least get the ship repaired enough that it can take off. They managed to lift off from the planet. It's a bit touch and go, but they managed to get up into space, and they're on their way again. And I think Ripley voices some concerns with Dallas about Ash. She's suspicious of him, and Dallas just kind of dissuades her from it. He's a funny one that as a character because he's quite a solid commander, but there's always a sense that he just wants to get the hell out of there and just He doesn't want
Yeah.
to get too involved in all of this stuff.
Well, you know, and it's also he knows like, okay, this whatever this mechanized. I mean, what I love is they've got this alien, but no one ever stops and has a conversation and says, "You would not believe this amazing derelict alien spaceship we found, and there was some space jockey. This amazing, it was incredible." They don't care. It's like we need to get back into space. I want to get back into the cryo chambers. This signal has probably been on for thousands of years, as far as we can tell. There's nothing to see.
I mean, the movie doesn't waste time, and it doesn't waste time telling you stuff you already know.
Right.
And that's what's really good about it. Like, the pacing is superb, and it credits the audience with enough intelligence to just think, yeah, they probably had these conversations. We don't need to hear them. Like, let's just move on from that.
Yeah.
And you get that real sense of just, okay, this is what each person's trying to do. This is where they're trying to get to. They just want to get off the planet right now and get on their way so they can, go back into cryostasis.
Absolutely. We're out of here.
Yeah. And that's when the facehugger detaches from Kane, and they're like, whoa, where did it go? I just love that they didn't have any video cameras on it.
I love when Ash calls up Dallas. Can you come down to the medical bay? And I love when I think it's Dallas says, well, is something changed? And Ash says it's interesting. Like, he doesn't tell him exactly what's happened. He goes, there's a change, but it's interesting. He doesn't say, you're not going to believe it. The facehuggers left his face.
I mean, honestly, if it was me, I would be like, well, look, it's going to take me like 15 minutes to walk down there. Can you just not tell me, like, what's happened? Is it something I need to come see, or can you just tell me over the radio? It's like, because I'm in the life pod right now, and you're down in medbay. That's really far away.
I mean, it's like when you get one of my little pet peeves in life. People always send me like DMs or something. Like they ask, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And then you have to answer. You have to answer, and you're like, yes, you can. I'm like, if you want to ask me a question, just ask me the question. I don't like having to respond yes and then have you come back. Look, if you're sending me a DM or a tweet or something, you're asking me a question. Don't ask me if you can ask me a question. Just ask the question. So when Ash goes, oh, it's interesting, like, he doesn't say.
Yeah, and it's like, well, how interesting.
Yeah, exactly like that. And of course, as an audience member, you're like, oh my God, what's going on? I mean, I really feel that this movie is a perfect audience manipulation tool, the way all great movies are. It's so good at telling its story that you, as the audience member, no matter what's going on, even what seem to be mundane conversations between characters, nothing is wasted. Every single scene in this movie is moving you as an audience member further into it. You're being set up the whole time, and this movie is pushing you exactly where it wants to go. That's why I call it like a perfect film, because it really knows what it's doing. Between the editorial staff, Ridley Scott, the production design, the creature effects, the actors, I mean, everything is firing on all cylinders, and you forget you're watching a movie. You're so swept up in what's going on that there's no movie conventions in this movie. You're just watching something that's actually happening in front of you. And I love that.
Isn't that the more engaging movie experience, when you don't feel like the film's bound up by all the conventions and the rules that would normally tell you exactly what's going to happen? You feel then that anything could happen to any of these characters because it's so real. It's so believable.
Yes, and I think that's a skill that I don't think people have anymore. It's seldom. Movies are now, they're so trope ridden, and there's so many of these stories are so cliche when you watch them that they're playing beats that you already know where they're going. Mm-hmm. And with this movie, you really don't, because one, it disarms you with the reality of it all, and then it doesn't unfold like you would expect. And that's, I think, in a way, I wonder how audiences of today, if you've never seen this movie and you're going to watch it on streaming or on, whatever you're going to watch it on, if people feel somewhat disappointed, like this movie's slow, because we've been conditioned to not expect this anymore. And I think that's kind of a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Because you're just not as engaged, because you're much more relaxed when you feel like a movie's adhering to all the conventions and all the rules, because then you kind of know what's going to happen. You know who's going to survive, who's going to get killed off, and it's it's trite and predictable. Whereas a film like this, it's complete opposite.
Right, exactly. And I miss that. You know, I miss, and in a way, I think there's a maturity level of, I mean, people that were, and maybe I'm just, you know, romanticizing the fact that in the 70s, I feel that movies were for adults. Like, even though this movie is a science fiction, fantasy, horror, thriller, it's made for adults the way that The Exorcist was made for adults, or Rosemary's Baby was made for adults, or even Jaws. You know, Jaws is very, aside from the shark, which it's never bothered me, but the characters in Jaws, again, very naturalistic. You're dealing with salt of the earth, blue collar, real people. And I feel that makes these films, the reason they achieve classic status is because the filmmakers behind them, they were trying to make something that was really happening, as opposed to, oh, we're in movie world now. Let's play by the rules of movie world.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't do that. This is like, what would happen if this happened for real? And I think that is the best way to approach any kind of fantasy or genre cinema. This is really happening. And the more effective a movie is, I think the filmmakers are striving to achieve that. Whatever that thing is, whatever it is, it's really hard to achieve because it's not easy to do. And it can even be betrayed by the way something is shot. You know, this film is not overly stylized, even though it is stylized, very much so. The cinematography is stunning in this movie, but it doesn't use coverage it doesn't overly edit something to make you think that there's action that isn't really there. Because every time you edit, you know, it's kind of jarring, especially when people use jump cuts to cover their fight sequences or action sequences. Yeah, you can bamboozle an audience with lots of cross-cutting or lots of quick cutting, but that's very different from being able to create tension with two people just talking to each other. That's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. It requires good writing, good actors, and good shooting. So things that we don't have so much of nowadays.
No.
So they go down to the med lab, and the facehugger has detached itself from Kane, and so they don't know where it is. So you get this great tension-filled scene of Ripley and Dallas and Ash just poking around the room, just looking for it. You know, they have a little bit of a red herring where you think it's in the corner, where Ash has got this little flashlight probe thing, and he's like, "Oh, it's in there, it's in there." Oh, nothing. And then you just get Ripley like, "What?" And it just falls down on her shoulder.
That is a great jump scare when that thing falls out of the ceiling. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Because its tail kind of unravels and then it lands on her shoulder, and she's like, "Oh fuck, no!"
Yeah,
you can imagine yourself in that situation as well. Like, it's on you, and you're trying to get rid of it, and you fall on your ass. You're just like, fuck, get off.
Yeah, it's like, and what's so great about that is we've all had spiders land on us, and we all kind of react that way. You know, like you don't. It's instinctual. You flinch, and again, it feels really real.
Yeah, and that's when they discover it's dead. And you know, you're thinking, well, what does all this mean? Why has it died? And I just love how Ripley's like, well, let's throw it out the fucking airlock and get rid of it. And Ash just goes like, "Oh, Ripley, for God's sake. It's the first time we've encountered something like this. We have to take it back and test it and stuff."
And again, he's not wrong. You know, it's like, and he is the science officer. So if he was a different crew member, you wouldn't have worked. The fact that you don't suspect anything, because yes, you're like, even I'm like, yes, absolutely. You need to find out what that thing is. By all means, it's dead. Put it away. You don't think much of it. If you've seen this movie for the first time, I mean, we're spoiling the shit out of it, but yes, it seemed like, okay, I'll buy that. He is the science officer.
Yeah.
Put it, freeze dry it, and do whatever you got to do. And what's great is another moment where they're looking at it. You know, it's dead, and they have it flipped over. And like you said earlier, it looks like they use seafood or whatever to make the thing. It looks absolutely real.
Yeah.
And the way they lift up that little weird membrane. Oh, it's just so
it's
great.
Disgusting, but it's very convincing looking.
Yes. And again, when do you see that anymore? You know, when do you get that level of it looks like something that you would pull out of the ocean or somewhere else, someplace from some horrible damp environment you never want to find yourself in.
Yeah, just
Great.
again thoroughly alien, but very organic and very believable. It just looks like some real thing. And so, yeah, not long after that, I think Kane wakes up from his coma that he's been in.
Yep.
And he seems to be fine. You know, he feels like crap, but you know, it seems like he's okay. And they're preparing to go back into hypersleep because they've still got like a 10-month journey to get back to Earth. But he wants to have dinner before he does that. And so you get the scene of them all around the dinner table, and it plays out quite slowly, just building it up. You know, Kane is all happy and chatting with everyone, but you get this shot of Ash just watching him across the table because he knows something's going to happen.
Yep.
He's watching the med scans, and you know the performance by John Hurt in this scene is just perfect because it builds up slowly. Like he starts coughing like he's just choking on his food, and everyone's just laughing, and it gets more and more serious. And like, oh shit, what's wrong with him? And you know, he starts writhing about on the table, like, and then crying out in pain. Like, he obviously wasn't, you know, he could only have been given so many directions for this.
Yep.
And but he just nailed what you would go through if this was actually happening to this thing was about to like claw its way out through your rib cage.
Oh, and there's a moment in this scene that it stops the audience and the characters stop when before the full burst happens, there's like a half burst.
Yeah.
When the thing comes up and down quickly and everybody just stops. I remember in the theater again, I'm like, and the crew is looking at this going, what I mean, you've never seen a human body violated that way before.
Yeah.
You know, in any movie, something coming up and down quickly. And there's not a full chest burst here, but it's so shocking that literally you as an audience member gasp, and then the crew gasps. They all look at it, and then he starts shaking again, and they start. Yeah. But it's a great moment. They didn't have to do that, but that half burst just made it even sweeter when what happens.
Yeah, because the sort of writhing about reaches this crescendo, and then he just goes still, and then up through his chest this thing goes. And apparently, like, I know people in chat will probably know this, and you'll know it yourself. The reaction from Veronica Cartwright is real in that scene because they actually showered her with blood and they didn't tell her that was going to happen, and so she's like, fuck.
I mean, she's got her hands up, and her facial expressions. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an actress have great contorted mouth expressions the way she does, and never more so than in that scene. And again, that you can't fake that. You know, like you said, she just grew, and everything that happened. Because it was probably, I think it was the first and only take of that. You know, they had multiple cameras.
You're not going to get that reaction from her again.
No.
People are saying in chat as well, the half burst that you were talking about there was a malfunction. I don't know if it was meant to be the full sort of explosion and it didn't quite work properly, but they kept it in as just this like weird precursor to what was about to happen.
Oh, that's genius then. I didn't realize that. That was great.
But yeah, like you said about her, she always comes across in this movie as kind of high strung. She's the sort of weak link emotionally, and she's the one who's most likely to lose it. And I honestly think she gets one of the worst deaths. Like, you don't even see it on screen, but you can just tell from the sound effects that it is horrible.
Somebody in the chat quoted her when she goes, "Oh God." You know, she says that. Somebody wrote that down exactly. And when they wrote it down, I'm hearing it in her voice. Yeah, it's so great.
Oh my God.
It's so great the way that, because it's just so, it's terrific.
Yeah, and it does lead up to the bit that you referenced earlier, where the chest burster comes out of him and it's kind of looking at everyone.
That is great, though.
Fake looking.
But I do love when the thing comes up and it looks down. It, like, again, it's bright light. You've got this creature, like it's the veins are pulsating, you know, in the sides of and it's kind of looking at everybody, and they're looking at. I love that because the head comes out and goes, and the sound effects, and It's only when the thing shoots down the table. That's the only effect in the movie that it's still cool because it's fast because you don't expect it. But I've seen it so many times that I'm like, yeah, like you said, where's the legs? It's just balancing on it's a little goofy. That's the only thing in this movie that I'm like,
But I think they knew what limitations they were working with there, and so it's done very quick. It's like the whole shot probably lasts a second or so, if that.
Yeah. And that's the only thing. The rest of the movie is, other than that one shot, and I don't mean to call attention to it, but it's just, I mean, if I could go in like to use CG ever and fix something, that one shot. And the thing is, I don't even know if you could, because it's a practical shot. So it works. It still has that reality to it.
I wouldn't want to see legs running like really fast along the table, because it would look kind of goofy. So I think they probably did the best they could with what they had there. People in chat are pointing out as well, like you can see his hands, because his hands are up like this, like once it's burst out of his chest, and they're still like convulsing like that, like once he's dead.
It's great.
Like probably didn't have to do that, but that just adds an extra layer of horror to it.
Yeah. And somebody said maybe they thought it moved like a cobra in the chat. That's true too. I would buy that. I mean, it does move very snake-like. But what's so great about that movement is it goes from, it's like looking at everyone, it's considering the world, it's slow, and then it immediately zips to this fast like an animal would. And I love that. Again, it keeps you off kilter, and the thing like runs away. And there's something to be said. I think the most movie moment in the whole movie, the most movie is their reactions when they're watching this thing. It's almost like when the actor, I forget why am I drawing a blank on his name? In John Carpenter's The Thing, he looks over and he goes, "You gotta be fucking kidding." When the head, but it's kind of one of those moments. I mean, it's not, it's still, it doesn't break the reality of the situation, but the reaction is great. The reaction.
Well, Parker wants to kill it. He grabs a knife and he's about to try and stab this thing, and it's Ash who stops him. Because again, obviously,
don't touch it. He puts his hand. It's great. The reactions are great.
Yeah. And so they have a funeral for Kane. Again, like there's nothing over dramatic about it. Like I think Dallas even says, "Does anyone want to say anything?" And nobody does. They just like shoot him out the airlock, and that's him gone. And so their task then is to try and track down this thing and kill it. Or at least capture it or whatever. Because also, they still see it as like a tiny little alien. They don't think it's a threat, really.
No, but I have to say too that again that jettisoning his body into space, it was so matter of fact, and it's really kind of jarring because you liked him. And when you right before the chest burster scene, he's kind of smoking his cigarette and he's like, "Oh, I had a dream about smothering or something." You really like that character. And again, it's how quick you go from being alive to being dead. And then this body is just shot out into the cosmic void. There's something about it like, man, space sucks. This is a dangerous, this is
NASA's logo or something. Like,
space sucks. And again, the ad campaign for this movie, the tagline is one of the greatest taglines of any movie ever, which is, "In space, no one can hear you scream." Mm-hmm. That I don't know who came up with that, but that might be one of the most genius lines of marketing ever written, ever. And you really get a sense of that when poor Kane is just, shot out into the infinitude of space. You're like, guess maybe his wife and his parents or anybody who ever knew him, they're never going to know what happened to that poor guy. He's gone now.
I remember in my high school physics class, the teacher referenced that move, that line from the movie, or the tagline about sound not traveling in space. And he was a guy from Newcastle, so he had a proper Geordie accent, and he's like, "Wait, cause sound doesn't travel through space, like." It's like, okay.
That's so great.
But yeah, so they've held the funeral for Kane, and so they're splitting up to go through this ship and try and track down the chest burster so they can capture it. And so I think Ash has given them like their little motion sensor units, which are like, it's like a precursor to those ones that you get in Aliens, which is so much, better at tension building, but these things are just like really blocky kind of things.
But it's interesting because they're like, so how does this work? And he gives them some BS explanation.
Yeah, micro changes in air density.
Air density, micro, and you're like, he knew this was like. Now you're really. It feels like there's something not right. There's something suspect going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because even the crew's like, okay, like you should have known this was going to happen. Didn't you look in that they laid something in his? Like now, Ash is suspect. Now you're like, this guy's not doing his job.
There's I mean, we'll get to it later, but there's a great scene where they all argue. I think after Dallas has been killed, and like, Ash is like, well, what would you like me to do? And Ripley's like, just what you've been doing, Ash, nothing. You know, he's like, fucking useless asshole.
And it's great because, again, the naturalism of that, the disdain she has for him. You know, there's no pretense. These are not, again, movie characters. These are written like real people in a real situation, and that's why it works so well.
Yeah. So Ripley and Parker and Brett, they go down into the bowels of the ship looking for this thing. They track it into like a storage locker, I think, where they think there's motion coming from. I don't know how the hell it would get inside that thing and then seal itself in. I don't know how the cat got in there either, but
right.
Yeah. They open it up and like it's Jonesy, the ship's cat. Remember him? Indirectly responsible for killing almost everyone on board the Nostromo. Fucking cat, honestly. So it escapes. It just like darts past them, and Ripley's like, "Well, we have to go and get it because it might show up again, and we'll just go on another wild goose chase." So this is one of the few times where they make a really stupid decision in this movie.
Right.
They send Brett to get it by himself. Like they don't go with him. It's like,
but they don't know. They don't know. They don't know that this thing is this parasitic creature. Who would ever believe that it's transmuted into whatever it's become?
Yeah. And that's when you find out, because he goes after it, tracks it through the ship. He's on his own. For some reason, he splashes water on his face and drinks it from like, the ducts coming down above. I was like, that's not rainwater, dude. Like that's coming from some weird industrial process.
I love that he does that because he's used to working on this dirty, grungy ship. I mean, what can it do? What's it going to do to him? Yeah.
And so he's trying to get Jonesy to come out, and the cat's like hissing at him, and then the alien appears behind him and just grabs him, fucking kills him.
Yeah, and hauls him up into the ship, like picks him up and takes him up, and it's like a spider, coming down from its web. And again, it completely, if you don't know anything about the movie, you cannot. That scene, the thing was so huge. And it was so gigantic. It was so different from what you expect. Again, as my 12-year-old self, I was like, oh my, I had never seen anything like that before. And they really, they're playing not fair with the audience because they're like, oh, you have no idea. This thing truly is alien. So what you would expect that this thing, how it was going to grow. Nope. It's totally alien. You don't understand what's happening. And that's when you realize everyone else on this ship is effed.
Yeah. I love as well how you hear Brett screams as he gets pulled into the air duct, and the camera's just on the cat's face. Because cats are fucking like horrifying anyway. And like, when the camera's like right in on it and it's got the eyes just watching all this happen. What a great shot. Like, damn, Ridley Scott. As much as I've slated you for Prometheus and Alien Covenant, you knew what you were doing with this movie. Well done, sir.
Absolutely. And the cat, I always felt that the cat's like, that's pretty impressive. Like the cat's completely impressed by the alien. The xenomorph.
It's like, I hate humans too.
Right. I mean,
you're just better at killing them than
I don't know how I wound up on this shithole of a ship, but boy, I really wish I could do that to you.
There's a shot here that's really weird, or a cut, should I say, and I never quite understood it because it then cuts to Parker back in the ops room, and he's talking about how this alien thing was big, like this. He's like, whatever it was huge, and it took it took Brett into the air ducts. You never see that on screen, so you kind of think,
No.
well, how was he there to see that? Because he was miles away at that point, Again, it's a weird edit, but I don't know.
Yeah, it
Maybe
is.
came
That whole thing, it is bizarre. And I think that was probably, in the case of this movie, I mean, this had a good budget, but it wasn't a gigantically expensive movie. And I think there's probably something missing there. Like they wanted to have more of a shot of it being him being taken away, and Parker maybe running in and seeing the last remnants of the thing in the up high and the chain shaking or something. And they just didn't have it.
Right.
They didn't have the shot. So,
but yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. So I think the next stage of their plan is they realize this thing is more dangerous than they anticipated. It's big now, and it's a real threat. So again, because they're sensible human beings and they act like adults, they're like, we have to ramp up our response to it. And so they rig up flamethrowers that they can use to attack it.
Well, I love the fact that there's no guns. They don't have any weapons on the ship because, like, why would they? It's not like, and even if they met marauders, what are they going to do? Take the entire refinery with them? They have no weapons at all. And nowadays, I don't know if people would buy into that, but at the time, it seemed, why would they have weapons? Why would they? In what universe would anybody give them a hard time?
Someone's mentioning in chat as well. Gordon Davis says the director's cut of this has a scene of Parker seeing Brett being taken by the thing. So maybe maybe it's cut for pacing reasons or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
because it's a 2-hour movie, so it's not short. So it might make sense that they would chop things like that out. But I'd like to see that. I've seen the deleted scenes where they turn Dallas into an egg. He's been impregnated with the alien.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
That is really horrific. Actually, I wish they'd kept that in.
Yeah, I think that might be in the director's cut. I'm not sure.
Right. I've only seen a low quality sort of VHS version of it. But Primark Vulcan actually was saying I'll catch this super chat while it's relevant. If you watch the director's cut version of the film, Parker walks up while Brett is being pulled away. So that's it, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. But yeah, so like you were saying, they don't have weapons. They have to rig up these improvised sort of flamethrower things because Ash suggests to them, again, it's a totally logical response. They want to drive this thing into the airlock so they can blow it out into space. And he realizes, well, most animals retreat from fire instinctively, so we'll use flamethrowers to drive it. So the idea is that the Dallas will go into the air duct system where it's hiding and work his way along, drive it into the airlock, and then they can kill it. But it doesn't work that way.
Also, this sequence is a tour de force of editing, directing. I mean, it's basically you're one guy in an enclosed space going through these irises that are closing behind you.
How cool are they, by the way?
Oh,
they didn't have to do that. They could have just had a door that closed, but they had these awesome iris things that just close, seal up, and they make this kind of.
It's like a giant shutter of a camera. Or an anus, or something, and it's just like the sound they make, that scratching metal sound, and and then you're so enclosed, and then they keep cutting to the graphic, of him walk. It's just this lo-fi graphic, and the music. Here's when Jerry Goldsmith's score is being used to great effect to create the tension. I mean, this. It's almost unbearable, the tension that's created in this scene. It's terrific. It's beautifully done.
Yeah. I love it. I love the really primitive tracking system they've got. So Lambert doesn't know what level this thing's on. She doesn't know how close it really is to him. She just knows it's getting closer to him. And she's like, fucking run. Just get out of there. Poor Dallas, he walks right into it and it kills him.
And that's another great scene. There's another great shot of the alien when it throws open its hands.
Yeah.
And the lights there. It literally is just a great moment. It's almost the most illuminated that you see the alien in the whole film.
Yeah.
And it's a great jump scare in your face.
And you don't have to see it kill him or drag him away or anything like that. It's just enough to see that moment of shot of it going for it.
Yeah, and then it cuts to Parker slamming down his flamethrower,
Yeah.
on the table, and you see the anger and the frustration in Parker,
Yeah.
and I love. I mean, again, the acting. Yaphet Kotto is so good as Parker, and
Yeah.
and these characters are now. It's no nonsense. We're in survival mode now. We're in real
Yeah, well,
trouble.
this is. I think you get this point in most horror movies where the group is like functioning up to a point, and then they just reach that breaking point where they start to disintegrate, and this is kind of it.
Yeah.
Ripley, because the senior officers are now dead, she assumes command. And the scene, the way this is shot, right, is so clever and it's so well done. The argument scene where they're in the command room, the camera remains on Ripley pretty much the whole time, but other people are talking, but you just get to see her reactions and you can see the pressure she's under.
Yep.
She wants to try and follow Dallas's plan, but the others aren't really up for it. Lambert's starting to freak out. Parker wants to just go and kill this thing. And you hear him in the background muttering to himself. Then Ripley's just like, will you listen to me, Parker? Shut up! Just the way she has to like stamp down her authority because that's what's expected of her now. She has to step up to the plate and take command. And this is how it has to be done through force. Brilliant performance by Sigourney Weaver in this scene.
And you realize you're down 3 people. You're down to half your cast is out of here, and the situation has been ratcheted up. I mean, it's desperate now. It went from something when Brett walked out to look for the cat. You've only got like 10, 15 minutes have now passed by, and you've lost 2 more crew members, including Tom Skerritt. You didn't think you were going to lose Tom Skerritt. He's the captain of the ship. Yeah. And then he's out of there. Yeah. And so the stakes have been raised. Like, ooh, if you're going to kill the captain, anything goes from now on.
Yeah. You get this real sense that these guys are totally out of their depth here. Ripley has a sort of bitch at Ash because he's been no help to them. And she says, well, I've got access to Mother now and I can get my own answers about this. So she goes to the computer room to interrogate the main computer. And that's when she finds out about the special order that the ship received, which is what took them to that planet in the first place. And this whole sequence is really disturbing, but really weird at the same time. And there's a few little things that come out of this that I don't understand, but I'll ask you, maybe you can help. She sees this special order where the crew are expendable. They've got to bring back this alien organism at all costs.
And I love this revelation as well because it changes the whole tenor of the film when you realize that these poor people that you've really developed an affection for, you have appreciated, they've been set up the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like this corporate, and the whole, I remember thinking, oh my God, like these people, this whole thing was a setup, and it just feels so, and a perfect film. The 70s were the era of the paranoid thriller, whether it was The Parallax View or 3 Days of the Condor or All the President's Men. You realize, like,
Body Snatchers.
Oh yeah, which came out the year before. I mean, which is that remake of that is one of my favorite films, science fiction films as well, because that was a movie where you realize that the invasion already happened before the movie even started. Yeah. But the characters in it don't know that yet, and they're finding out as they go. And it's this is the ultimate edition of that 70s paranoid. It's not whether you're paranoid, Lenny, it's whether you're paranoid enough from Strange Days. I mean, and they never even considered that. And to find out that there's this much of a betrayal, man. Oh, yeah.
I love how Ash just kind of appears beside her as well. Like, you don't hear him come in or anything. He's just like, there is an explanation for this, And she just fucking grabs him and slams him against the wall. It's like, piece of shit. I want to hear it. And then she just storms right out of the room. Again, just a brilliant performance by Sigourney Weaver. She's so good in this movie.
So good. And Ian Holm, man, he's gone from like the kind of stiff upper lip, science officer to now this Machiavellian, horribly evil villain.
Oh, I love how because his whole demeanor just changes in that scene where she pushes him up against the wall. He just suddenly, all the emotion just kind of drains out of him, and he's just looking at her like blank. And so she storms off, and he closes the doors so she can't leave.
Oh,
But there's a weird thing where she turns around, right, and her nose is bleeding. And I don't understand how that happened, because at this point he hasn't attacked her yet. But like, she's got a nosebleed. I don't know if this is a cut scene or something like that. It's a
yeah,
really weird one.
I don't know the answer to that either. I mean, maybe she banged herself on the way after she threw him up against the wall or something like that happened. But it is kind of odd. This whole scene, the staging of it is a little odd. You know, this whole, but I love it anyway because it's off kilter, and it's talk about rapey. I mean, this is sexual. It's not exactly sexual violence, but it's hard. It really is. I mean, it's
there's implied stuff going on here, because well, I love that the camera's right in on Ash's face, and you see the droplets of sweat going down his forehead, but they're like that milky stuff that's inside the androids.
Yes.
Like implying that he's kind of been damaged in some way.
Right, and that's kind of what I got. Like when she threw him up against the wall, like maybe she banged his head against something or whatever. But it gets again off kilter. It's like the water dripping up from the egg, you know, in the derelict craft. When you see I remember thinking, why is his sweat or whatever white? It was just so odd. And you're going, wait, what's going on here?
Oh yeah,
of course.
And then she can't get out, so she tries to walk past him, and then he punches her in the stomach. Just starts throwing her around the room, and he keeps stopping. It's weird. It's like he's trying to decide what to do next, and then he just throws her down on the ground. Then you see him pick up this magazine that he just rolls up really fucking tight. Like you can see his arms trembling as he does it. And then he just tries to shove this thing into her mouth. It's really, the way it's shot is really well done, but it's really disturbing because it's like
really
he's not
disturbing.
even thinking rationally at this point. It's like he's you can see he's malfunctioning in terms of what he is. And that's when Parker and Lambert try to come in and help her. But yeah, like they hit him and stuff, and then he starts spinning around and like freaking out. There's like milk shooting out his mouth.
I know, it's crazy.
Before you know the context of what's going on, you're just watching this thinking, what the fuck is going on with this dude?
Yes. And again, it's totally off kilter. It's bizarre. What is happening? You don't know. And then Parker comes in with a killing blow.
Yeah, like he punches his head clean off. So yeah.
And that was something else that was totally shocking. You're already going, what the hell's going on? And then, you know, the head comes off, and you still don't know because it's like weird plastic, organic. Again, it looks like there's bladders, or it looks somewhat organic, but not human.
Yeah, it's like biomechanical kind of thing.
And weird fiber optics. And then the head it's so... Again, the head's hanging all the way back and it's bouncing around. And I mean, and then you see the two tubes spewing the jizz blood or whatever it is, you know, that's spewing out of him, the milk.
Here's an interesting thing, actually. People talking about the nosebleed thing. From Clay Johnson, this is a super chat. He says there's a scene where they actually manage to get the alien into the airlock, but Ash releases it on the sly, and Ripley suffers from decompression, hence the nosebleed.
Wow. Okay, that was definitely something that they took out. Wow, I didn't know that.
I need to see the director's cut of this movie. I really do, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff in there that's...
Yeah, although I don't know, man. I don't know how that works with the pacing, because I still think the original version, I'll have to watch it. I've actually never seen... I own the director's cut of Alien, but I've never seen it.
Right. It's still got the cellophane on it.
No, it's open. It's open,
okay.
but I do have it.
Yeah, so either way, you know, I love the bit where Ash like falls to the ground, like they think they've killed him, and Parker's like, "Oh, Ash is a goddamn robot."
Oh,
and then he leaps up and fucking he's on top of Parker again.
Yeah, and I love again Yaphet Kotto's performance. is so great because they can't. He's exactly saying what you as an audience member are thinking. And the performance, just the way he says it. It's one of the line reading is so good. The way he does it, it's so great.
Yeah. And I think it takes Lambert to hit him with the cattle prod thing, and it like short circuits all the mechanisms inside him to finally put him down.
Yeah.
And that's when Ripley, reassembles him at least a little bit so that they can interrogate him. And Parker doesn't want to do it, but she's like, look, he might know how to kill it, so we need to talk to him at least.
And again, I mean, so great. Suddenly you really are in sci-fi territory. Oh, it's a crazy android. I mean, crazy. That's like a great sci-fi trope that they've spun on its ear. Because again, you've never seen anything like this. And the depiction of an android, an absolutely human android, but is filled with the whole thing with milk and whatever's inside of it. It's not something you'd ever seen before in a movie. And it plays against anything you were expecting to see, and it takes it just is an extra added level of jeopardy now, and so good.
Yeah. I love the special effects as well, because obviously it's just Ian Holmes' head coming up through a table, but it's like simple. It works really well.
Yeah,
it looks perfectly fine for what they were doing.
Absolutely.
So you get this little scene where they're asking how they can kill it, and he says you can't, like you're completely out of your depth with this one. But like he mentions that he admires the alien. He admires that it's just a survivor and it's not clouded by morality or anything like that.
Well, Lambert says you admire it, and then he says, I admire its simplicity.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is great. And I love, you also get, what I love is that the fact that this android can admire anything at all, like it does. That's how advanced these androids are. There's it's almost like, talk about a mad scientist who thinks what he's doing is beyond human emotion or empathy, and it just, again, it adds another level to this film that takes it up a notch.
Yeah, well, it ties in exactly to his mindset, because he admires the alien. He says that it's got no conscience or remorse or delusions of morality. And you could say that, well, neither does he, because he's an android. He's not been programmed with any of those things.
And that's why he admires it.
Yeah,
he can do what needs to be done. I don't have to deal with you and your stupid emotions.
Yeah,
I can do whatever I want.
I presume he's bound by like certain rules or protocols or whatever, but this alien is not, and it's free in ways that he can never be.
Right.
And he probably envies it for that. And wow, what a disturbing concept that humans have created this android, but it secretly yearns to be like the alien that just mindlessly kills people.
Right. Right. Then he can do the job without, he's unfettered by any kind of morality or I don't know, thinking about, he's no conscience.
Yeah. So what a horrific universe this movie creates, where like space is this horrifying, like dark expanse of like cold nothingness. It's filled with stuff that wants to kill you. Even the artificial life forms that you create to help you in life, like, want to destroy you as well because they secretly hate you. Like, man.
Yeah, man.
This is existential crisis levels of horror,
And again, one of the things I've loved too about this movie, I've always loved about the film, like an H.P. Lovecraft book, the cosmic void, the infinitude of the universe is not pleasant for human beings. We're not. This is the cosmic void. We're not supposed to be here. Let's go back to Earth and just
our little beige squishy bodies are not designed for this kind of environment.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're hard enough to survive. I mean, you talk about being a battle-hardened soldier. I mean, this is existentially hardened to the point of we need to bleed all of morality. We need to bleed all of humanity out of ourselves in order. If we're going to cope, we need to do that, because clearly we're not going to cut it right now.
Yeah,
we're out of our depth.
I love how this now just leads to the final act of the movie, because Ripley just decides, right, fuck this, we're out of here. We're going to blow up the ship, kill the alien, and just escape on the shuttlecraft. So they're going to need some extra supplies to survive there. So she sends Lambert and Parker to go and gather oxygen canisters while she goes and preps the shuttle. And that's when she realizes that the fucking cat is on the loose and she needs to go and get it. But while this is going on, you get this amazing tension-filled scene where there's a spotlight on Lambert. Parker is like getting oxygen bottles and he's rolling them towards her, and then the alien just comes in, and it's between the two of them. And so Parker tries to take it on hand to hand because he can't shoot it without incinerating her. And it's awful. Like that scene where it's gotten pinned up against the wall and the jaws just open up and the mandible comes out.
I mean, already it's alien, but the second jaws and the way they just into his head. Yeah. And what's really great about this film is it doesn't linger on gore necessarily, but the violation of the human body throughout this movie, it couldn't be worse.
Well, with Lambert, you see, because you don't get to see what happens to her, but you see the tail, this barbed fucking tail go up between her legs. You don't need to see anything more than that. You can just imagine the horror that happens after that. But you get to hear her over the radio as Ripley's running towards her, and it's like, it's awful, the screams that she puts out.
And then it's like Parker's head gets completely obliterated. But what you see later is there's this sort of tableau of these two bodies that have been completely violated. You see them like in shadow as just part. It looks like they're part of the landscape of the room, and they're just dripping with grue. It's horrible. It's just horrible.
But Parker, man, he went out like a boss.
Yeah, he give him that. He went out like a boss.
He was going to take on this thing like in a fist fight.
He tried to save her. He tried to be a chivalrous knight. Yeah.
Well, he was always the rough and tumble guy who was going to throw himself into the fray.
And I'll tell you what I loved. There's something about this film too that I really loved is that in the beginning when you first meet the characters, and he directly makes that sexual comment about I'd rather be eating something else, but food will do. You get the idea that they were like a couple. I've always thought that there was a couple thing going on between the two of them. And the fact that they're together at the end, it's almost like they're the star-crossed lovers that working together, they might survive. And I always thought it was an undercurrent of the film. And then unfortunately, nope. Not happening.
It sets it up in two different ways, because on the one hand, you could almost see him as if this was made today, you would almost see him as a threat. Like, oh man, he's got his eye on her. He's going to try and like violate her at some point. But actually, he's a very heroic, chivalrous guy who's willing to lay down his life to try and protect her and give her a chance to escape. She doesn't ultimately take it, but that's what he tries to do. And he is ultimately a really good man.
Yes.
And he goes out in that way. And man, again, like that's just probably what you wouldn't get nowadays, which is a real shame.
Yeah, and but again, there isn't even a moment. I mean, it's so brutal. Any romanticism about whether he's chivalrous or not is completely taken away, because this situation is just, there is no hero. You can't be a hero in this scene. There are no heroes. It's the cold, hard facts of the universe. It is indifferent to your suffering, and you will die, and there is no escape. And I love that about this movie.
It's a very dark, unforgiving sort of world, and a threat that they face that's just, it's kind of insurmountable in a lot of ways, and it takes like the entire crew to be able to take down this one alien. But this sequence, right, that I absolutely love, where Ripley flees the scene, and she goes to set the self-destruct mechanism on this ship, which is, again, like everything else that I was talking about earlier, it's a complex process where you've got to press lots of buttons, you've got to do lots of things in the correct sequence.
And it's very mechanical. I mean, these things come up and you have to turn them and push them in, and it's not easy.
No, it's not. You have to follow the instructions on the thing. And it wouldn't be easy because you're blowing up the ship that you're on. It has to be something that you do consciously. Like, this is only something you're to do in the absolute last resort. And that's what she does. But she tries to make her way back to the shuttlecraft to escape. The alien's right in her way, so she can't get past it. And so she realizes, shit, I've got to stop this self-destruct sequence. And I love I love how it plays this because the time is ticking down. She's only got like a minute to disable it. And you know exactly how she would feel. Like when you're trying to do something under time pressure, it like a simple task becomes really complex because you've got to
Absolutely.
do it quickly. And you can see her like, oh, come on, like fucking trying to push the things in and press the right buttons. And you've got these like massive column things that are sticking up out of the deck that she's got to push back down. She just doesn't manage to do it in time, but you really feel for her because you would be the same in that situation.
No, and again, her acting, her performance here, just an understanding of what it's like to be in those kinds of situations. And we as an audience I totally identify with her. And I'll tell you something else that I really loved. Seeing this in a theater, there's a section where she's trying to rescue Jones where you see it's like the light is strobing. It's a great moment when you see her face. It's in the trailer when she turns to look and the light is strobing on her face and she sees the alien in the other side. In a theater, when you see this, that strobing is lighting up the entire theater. And it really puts the zap. If you see this on, I've always told people, if you get a chance, one of the movies I think everybody should see in a theater if they can is Alien, because it really affects the viewer. And that's one of the scenes where if you have epilepsy, don't do this. Don't go see Alien in theater. Yeah. But the flashing, and it's so that it just increases the tension. I mean, razor sharp. You feel like you're being about to be garroted with piano wire or something as you're watching it, because that flashing light really, it fills the whole theater up, and it's incredible to experience that. Yeah, so good.
I'd love to see this in a movie theater. I really would. You just don't get the same impact at home.
No.
No. But I love when she tries to appeal to Mother as well. Like, hey, I've turned the coolant back on. And Mother's like, yeah, you've got 5 minutes to reach minimum distance. He's like, you bitch!
Yeah.
And puts the flamethrower straight through the monitor,
It's so great. I mean, the frustration and by this time, the tension, everything. I mean, it's incredible. How many movies can do this nowadays? When was the last time you ever saw a movie that put you in this position where, for the last 15 minutes of the film, the tension is like, you can't even imagine.
To give you, in the first instance, like characters that you really care about, and so you feel real tension when they're in danger and you want them to survive, you desperately want them to succeed. That in itself is a rare thing nowadays.
Yes.
So you had so many of them. You wanted everyone to survive, basically, in this movie.
Yeah, yes.
And it felt bad. You felt bad every time one of them got killed. But like when you're down to like Parker and Lambert and they get killed, you're like, oh, God damn it. And then Ripley, you're like, okay, you've got to make it. Come on. Like she's running towards the escape ship again. She's like swearing and cursing as she goes because she's so pissed off. I think she just barely makes it on board.
Right.
With Jonesy the cat in his little box. And again, she's got to go through a process to get this ship off the Nostromo. She's got to like arm it. She's got to like prime the thrusters and everything, strap herself in, and then off she goes.
And I love that the shuttle, the Narcissus, when they're inside of it, it's more along the lines of the white of when they woke up from cryosleep. We're out of the industrial. The ship is kind of white. I mean, it's gray, but it's brighter. It doesn't look as grungy. It looks almost brand new because, well, no one's ever used it before. So it feels there's safety in it. Yeah. You thinking when she's doing her pre-flight countdown or whatever, you kind of are as an audience member, you're kind of like, oh, thank God. Thank God she's going to get away. Thank God.
If only she had closed the door while she was absent, never mind. Like she just barely escapes when the ship detonates. It is a shame, and I know they had to do this for cinematography reasons, but in space no one can hear you scream because sound doesn't travel through a vacuum. But then when the Nostromo detonates, you get the big explosion. Yeah, they had to do it, I suppose.
No, but I'll tell you another great moment in that movie is when she's in the shuttle and the hand of the alien comes out.
Oh, love it.
you
Yeah.
know, and she gets in that again. She gets in the same kind of spacesuit, but it's all white. You know, it's the white version of the suits we saw in the beginning of the movie. And again, I love the fact that at the end of the movie, when she's getting into the spacesuit, she's basically in her tank top and a panties. And there's something.
Yeah, this is classic horror movie stuff, isn't
I
it?
mean, it's incredibly erotic because you're literally looking up, the camera's low angle, looking up at her crotch and her beautiful body,
That's,
and
yeah,
suddenly
because there's
there's
a
this.
bit where she has to squeeze into this suit and she has to kind of arc her back.
Yeah, and you're looking at this, and it's so. I think what I love about that, it's so intentional that you know, on one hand, it's really playing with the idea of the violations that have occurred. I mean, it's not just the violations of the human body. I mean, obviously, the biomechanical work of Giger is so much. It's all about rape and sex and procreation and just the horrible stuff going on, the life cycle, you know, and then they're kind of playing off on that. Like, here's this pure as the driven snow woman. She's clad in white now, and she's got a white t-shirt on and white satin panties, and she's getting into this pristine, almost virginal suit. Is she going to get there before the walking alien phallus tears her asunder? You know,
Well, I mean, what it does, like, first of all, you know, the scene where the arm comes out and tries to grab for her, it's so well done because the alien blends in perfectly with the interior of the spacecraft, because there's lots of ducting and piping and everything. There's lots of like kind of rounded shapes, so its head blends straight into it. You genuinely are not aware that it's even there, and all of a sudden this fucking arm just comes right out, and you know, she backs off with it, but. You know, because she's like stripped down to her underwear, basically, she is as vulnerable as a human being can be. Like,
yeah,
she's got no weapons, no armor, no protection, nothing. And so she's down to the bare essentials. And so, yeah, you know, she retreats so she can get into this spacesuit. Yeah, there's a real crotch shot there where it's like the camera's just low angle. She's getting her leg into
shameless.
It is, yeah. Fuck it. It works for me, you know? And you know, while she's getting into this thing, it keeps cutting over to the alien, and this is what I love as well. Like, she's getting in the spacesuit, she's trying to get the helmet on and everything, and it's like putting slime all over the area around it. It's like it's building a cocoon or something for itself.
Yeah, and you get the moment where you finally see the jaws that we saw kill Parker. You know, it comes out of the mouth slowly, opens up, and then pulls back inside. It's like now, oh, not only is this xenomorph, it's playing with her. Like, you see the intelligence, like, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah.
You know, it's taunting her, and then suddenly the revelation that there is intelligence behind this creature's actions. Well, then it's even scarier. It's not just a wild animal, because how it's not like it grew up in a pack. You know, it's a newly minted alien, and yet it's certainly got smart very quickly, which is even more terrifying.
Yeah, and I love how, you know, she has to sneak back into the room. She straps herself into the chair. She starts using the purge system to like hit it with gas or steam or whatever to try and drive it out of its hiding place. And I just love how, you know, it's closing in on her, and she turns away from it almost because she can't bear to look at it. And it's only when she just sees the reflection just in her helmet that she's like, oh, fuck, hits the airlock to open up the ship. I assume what she was doing was trying to increase the pressure inside the spacecraft.
Yeah.
So when the airlock opens, it's just going to suck this thing straight out. But even then, it's like jammed in the door. It's like trying to like pull its way back in. She shoots it with a fucking harpoon gun right in the chest. And still, that's not enough to stop it. I just love it. This thing just won't die.
It's amazing. And then, you know, finally, again, I love, again, the genius of Ridley Scott. When the alien finally is expelled from the ship, you've got the back of the Narcissus, the rockets are firing, and it's
they use to get into the engine outlet, doesn't it? And
and they use water, that's illuminated water. When, you know, they have it hung up and it's banging against the exterior. It's so great. I mean, it's such a great moment, and yet it's scary and still triumphant at the same time.
Yeah. That moment where it goes into the engine outlet and she just hits the button to like ignite them, and you see it blasted out into space, and she's just like, "Yeah, fuck you, got you, you son of a bitch." Like, it's so satisfying. This thing, which has destroyed her entire crew and like killed everyone she cares about, she's finally managed to kill it. Man, that is a satisfying kill right
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah. Oh, hang on one second.
Okay. I will leave Robert for a moment. I'm going to see if I can actually bring up a couple of super chats here.
No, I have a friend.
Oh, okay.
I brought a friend with me.
Hey, brilliant!
So,
Holy shit, man!
yeah, I figured out this is a Pearl. Pearl was named by viewers of the Burnett work. There she is.
She is gorgeous. Honestly, I've dated worse.
This is a 1-to-1 scale replica of the alien head. So,
damn.
Yeah. So here you go. And you could never really see it, but it did have the actual suit did have this clear piece that showed like brains underneath. So
wow,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Honestly, like one of the other guys that I've streamed with, we did Aliens, was a guy called Danquish, and he's got a perfect replica of the pulse rifle from Aliens.
Oh yeah,
man, I feel like the two need to meet somehow.
No, I'm just a huge fan of this movie, and
that's an incredible prop you've got there. That's
yeah,
awesome.
you know, it's funny. I've had this for like 15 years, and it was made by some prop company, but it's really, really heavy. It's made out of resin, and I love it. It's just hard to put places because you can actually. What's great is it's so heavy that you can have it if you put it up on a shelf. You can have it hanging over the side of it. It's pretty great.
I mean, it would be the great thing to put in your living room for dinner parties and stuff, like a conversation piece, you might say.
Yeah, I used to have in my old office, like 15 years ago, I had a giant. I gave it away, but I had a giant bust of Tim Curry from the movie Legend as Darkness, and in the edit bay. Thing. Yeah, the big horned thing. So I had the alien head in my edit bay, and one speaker, the alien was on top of it, and Darkness was on the other. And it was those were the days.
Cool. That is cool. But I mean, yeah, that was Alien, and what a movie it was! Like,
oh my god,
I still have the debate with myself about which movie is better, like Alien or Aliens, and like I kind of come down on the side of. I probably enjoy rewatching Aliens more,
right? Just
because it's a fun action sci-fi horror movie.
It's wildly entertaining.
But I think Alien is in some ways the better crafted movie. As a horror flick, I think it takes some beating. I think it's so well put together.
But I think what's great about both of those films, Alien and Aliens, as far as movies and a sequel. I love the fact that they're both two very different kinds of movies that are obviously with you've got the creatures unite them, but one is sort of this existential horror film and the other's a war movie, and yet they both feel of a piece. They both feel. I think Alien and Aliens are two of the most successful film and sequel. When you think about great sequels, Aliens is right up there with Empire or The Road Warrior to Mad Max or The Godfather 2 to Godfather 1. It doesn't get much better. And I think that, obviously you have James Cameron coming off of Terminator when he made Aliens. They only had 6 alien suits when they made that movie. And it's again, James Cameron is a different kind of a director than Ridley Scott, but no less effective in what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think, Aliens, my God. But Aliens only works because you've seen Alien. It works. To me, it works better because then you understand the dread. Cameron plays up the tropes and the things that happen. The Alien Queen was obviously an invention of his, but I don't mind that. Who laid the eggs?
I think that makes perfect sense when you get the context of it. And I think Aliens retained a lot of the horror aspects of it. It's a horrific enemy that you're facing.
Right.
But it put into the context of a kind of war movie.
And I thought that
heavy
so
on
good.
action. But it never became derivative, and it never became dumb or anything like that. So it struck that perfect balance for me, and I think it was definitely a logical place to take it.
Absolutely.
Particularly since it was made in like the mid '80s, when that was the decade of the action movie. But yeah,
and it was 7 years later. I mean, Aliens came out in '86, and that was a long time between sequels.
Yeah.
And it works just really, really well. I mean, Aliens is one of the great sci-fi fantasy films ever made too.
Yeah. But I mean, this movie, for anyone who somehow hasn't seen it, like, it's absolutely a film you should watch. Like, it's a textbook example of how to put together a horror film, and how to blend sci-fi and horror in a way that that doesn't diminish either of those things. Like, perfect. Great casting, great acting, great directing. I can't fault this movie, really.
No.
Apart from just a couple of, like we discussed, a couple of tiny little minor editing goofs, which I think were just the result of deleted scenes or whatever. But otherwise, solid.
So good.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that you had about 2.5 hours, something like that. I was gonna...
I could say if you want to do super chats, I can stick around.
Yeah, if that's cool, man.
I'd love to.
We'll get through as many as we can, and whenever you're out of time, just let me know, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, by the way, this conversation was just as enjoyable as I thought it would be. I mean, I love talking with you about film, and as I said, I'm such a fan of your YouTube channel. I've been watching my way through Game of Thrones. We have the final episode to go, and I really enjoyed your Game of Thrones video where you fixed it. When you drop it last week, I thought that was great.
Oh yeah, God, that was something I've been meaning to do for a while, and I knew it was going to take me a while because I wanted to come up with some kind of fix for it that was going to make sense and be sort of dramatically satisfying. But it could have easily been like an hour long. Like if I was trying to tie up all the plot threads and all the different characters and everything. But
no, it's a really interesting. I mean, going through that show, just as an aside, the first 4 seasons are pretty perfect. 5 and 6 are the cracks start to show, but season 6 ends so strong with the final 2 episodes. And then season 7 and 8 become so problematic. And by the time you get to 8, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What? And it's frustrating. And I wonder, when I go back and we watch something like Alien, I wonder where did the sensibilities go to be able to create, like all movies in the 70s. I mean, I don't look at it just through rose-colored glasses, but the genre cinema of the 80s, and indeed the cinema of the 80s, it just felt like people were more well-read, more literary. They understood that storytelling has a literary component to it, that goes back thousands of years to tell effective stories. And now I feel like, especially in a lot of our genre, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, our genre entertainment, people have forgotten that these are classical stories. And there's ways to tell these tales that work better than others. And if you just watch television or movies in your life and you've never read books and you don't have an understanding of dramatic structure, you're never going to be able to. All you're doing is you're giving us half-baked things that we've already seen before and done better.
Yeah, I think back then there was one that focused on classic storytelling techniques and ideas, and also probably crediting your audience with more intelligence than they do now.
Yes, absolutely. And they're with you. You don't have to, you're not looking at the comment. You're assuming your audience is smart.
Yeah.
And I feel that we don't do that anymore.
No, we absolutely spell things out to people. And the sort of age range that we appeal to now is like 12 to 18-year-olds. We have to like make things really simple. We have to explain things. We have to base everything around emotions and feelings and all that stuff. And it's not the same. And so you don't get characters now that act like adults.
Right. And that's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, because you can't get invested in it, because if you were in that situation, you wouldn't act anything like what the characters do. And that's what's annoying. And that's what stops you from getting invested in a lot of films nowadays.
Absolutely.
So let's see if I can bring up some of the super chats here. Right. First one is from Lynn Hobday. Says, first saw Alien at sixth form movie club viewing. When the alien sprung out of John Hurt, it was met with peals of laughter from the boys, but kind of alleviated the tension. Looking forward to this discussion. Sleep is overrated.
Lynn's in Japan too.
I think sometimes when you get horror movies, people do laugh to break the tension when they've gotten through a really tense scene. I think it's just a natural human reaction to like really stressful situations. So I don't know if that was part of it. Particularly when it's a bunch of guys, like everyone wants to play the hard man and not show that they were freaked out by something. So they just go, it was funny as fuck. Yeah. So Unhinged Entertainment says, the drinker and alien, I have a xenomorph in my pants. Well, don't we all, my friend? Stephen Ladoto says, John Hurt in Spaceballs, not again. Mikey Gosler says, which cut of Alien do you prefer to watch, the theatrical or the director's cut? Personally, I'm fine with either or. It's not an Alien situation where I feel they cut out an important character moment like Ripley finding out her daughter died. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Rob, but I haven't seen the director's cut version of this, so I couldn't say.
I haven't either. Again, I think I might go back and watch it now. Now I just want to see what's in there and what isn't.
But yeah, I prefer the extended cut of Aliens. With
I do too.
Sentry guns and all that stuff. I think that's awesome. Also, from Mikey Gosler says, in space, no one can hear you fart, but they can smell it. Ecanalist says, Hail Drinker and Robert Meyer Burnett, in an empty whiskey bottle, no one can hear you scream. I always scream when I see an empty bottle.
There's no more whiskey.
Yeah. I'm getting there, by the way. There's not much left. Almost Ready says, hey Drinker, do you think it would be possible to do a Drinker Fixies on the third Alien movie? Yeah, but I feel like I'd have to break my rule and kind of rewrite the entire thing. What a wasted opportunity that movie was. It still makes me sad. But yeah, it would be interesting. I'm going to talk about that at some point. I'm going to do a review of Alien 3 and give my proper thoughts put down about it. Robert Lewis says, thoughts on Waterworld? How about Sunshine? Thanks. Waterworld was a kind of big overblown disaster. Sunshine, I kind of liked, but it felt like it dragged a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the latter half of Sunshine, it doesn't work as well as the first, but I like Sunshine, and Waterworld's just an amalgamation of other stuff. But I still they released a very interesting Arrow from the UK released a really great box set of Waterworld that has a great documentary on the making of the film, and it has different cuts of Waterworld. There's it is Mad Max on the water sort of, but there's things I like about it, but it's not a good movie.
Yeah. I was going to do a production hell on it, actually, because apparently it was monumentally difficult to make that movie.
Yeah.
Like, typhoons destroyed the entire set that they were building. Like, they had all kinds of problems shooting out in the open ocean. But yeah, like it was definitely an ambitious movie, but it wasn't a great film.
Right.
Roger H gave me a thumbs up super sticker, so thanks, man. And Wazoo 42 gave me a popcorn super sticker, so thank you for that. Chucksenhausen says, a two-part chat. I just watched Jurassic Park in a theater last month, and I must say it's way better than current movies today. Yep, 100% agree.
Yeah.
So my next chat is a request. If you ever make a Drinker Recommends video, at the moment you have the T-Rex make her famous roar for the first time, would you replace it with the infamous Dr. Weir scream from Event Horizon? That would be a most legendary moment. Absolutely. Oh man, I love that scream. Stephen Otten says, Hail Drinker and Robert Meyer Burnett and everyone in the chat, sit back and enjoy a sci-fi classic that's way better than Manifest. Yeah. Indeed.
Oh boy. Yes, that show. The show I love to hate.
Yeah. I watched the first season of that and just totally burned out with it.
It has an impossible premise. They can never all they can do is keep asking questions. They can never answer them because they don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling. I was like, this is just going to drag on forever. Polaris excuse me, Polaris Sucks says, "Hail gents, this will be a great one." Hopefully, it was. Jordan Rockwell says, "What I find so incredible is that the late 70s look holds up incredibly well. No wonder they kept it for the excellent Alien Isolation." Yeah, I think I would put a lot of that down to Ridley Scott.
Yep.
His cinematography is just fantastic. It's the same with Blade Runner.
Yep.
It's got this kind of feel to it that it just doesn't age. I don't know how to describe it. It's really dense. It's really rich visually, and it just looks great on screen.
And also, I mean, there's so much you don't feel like you're looking at a set. You know, you feel that everything is real. I mean, there's so much depth in his sets and so many different layers of things, and the way he lights things, it just feels naturalistic, even though it's completely stylized. You just believe it. You believe what you're seeing.
You know what Ridley Scott he loves is like his beams of light going through dusty air, and so you can see the beams just like going through things and shadow and stuff. Like he does that so often, but it looks amazing when he does.
Absolutely.
What's the next one? The Great Muda says, "Oh, drinker mugging for the the Simps with the close-up shot." Hail boys, been excited for this one. I moved my camera a bit closer because I was really far away, and it looked really out of place when everyone else's head was massive and mine was tiny and off in the distance. So I'm trying to balance it out a little bit. But I'm sorry, I look like a corpse.
I look like my head's so big it's like the floating head from Zardoz.
The gun is good and the penis is evil. Man, I must review Zardoz one day.
You really do. I would love to hear your review of that.
Sean Connery in an orange nappy. What more can you ask for?
Not much.
Charles Hurst donated $50. Thank you very much, my friend. He says, "Excellent choice, gentlemen. Really looking forward to watching this after work. In the meantime, have a few on me." I really will, and thank you for that, man. Cheers to you, Charles Hurst. Nick B says, "You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? The perfect super chat. Its structural perfection is matched only by its wittiness." Thank you very much, Nick B. I appreciate that, man. That's a good super chat. Steve Meyer says, "Hi, gents. What's the better film, Alien 3 or 4? Thanks." So Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection? I'd probably say Alien 3 if I had to pick. Alien Resurrection just felt really cheap and exploitative and
ordinary. It felt ordinary.
Was it De Bont that directed that one?
No, it was Jean-Pierre Jeunet who directed Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, it had Ron Perlman in it, which makes any movie great. But just he wasn't enough to save it, sadly. Robert Lewis says, "I wrote a short story called The Golden Staircase, A Dog's Perspective. It's on Amazon. I'm working on an epic and got 50,000 words so far. How did you get your work out there? My first try isn't doing well." I mean, in my case, I just got an agent and then found a publisher. So like I went down the traditional publishing route. I don't know all that much about self-publishing, so I couldn't really advise you on that one, to be honest.
How long did that search take from the time you had your book to the time you found an agent?
Well, my first book never got published, so it was enough to get me an agent, and it did the rounds with all the publishers. And man, it came this close to getting published, and then it didn't. And that was really, really disappointing because I was desperate to get published and leave my job and become a writer. And I had all these grand visions in my head. Yeah, I'm going to be the next J.K. Rowling. Just you wait. And it totally didn't happen. But I went back to the drawing board and then got my second book out there. And that's what got me my first publishing deal. So it was probably about 2.5 years in total from getting my book written to getting my first proper publishing deal.
Yeah, it takes that. Wow.
I mean, I've known people that have struggled away for 10 years before they got a deal and probably put out like half a dozen manuscripts before they finally got one that got published. So it's a hell of a difficult industry to get into.
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
But yeah, you kind of just have to persevere with it. in a lot of cases, and it'll take time. But listen to the feedback that you get, and try and improve on your work, and eventually you'll get there. I would hope. Samuel Oldham gave me a $3 super sticker, so thank you. Almost Ready says, "Hey Drinker, a true classic piece of cinema that did not need a prequel. It was better and scarier not knowing where the aliens came from." Yeah, I 100% agree. I think we talked about this earlier, like the aliens, the space jockey, all that stuff.
Oh,
I don't want to know where they came from. I just want that mystique. That's what makes them interesting. The questions are more interesting than the answers that you can get, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the kind of horror of space in general, is just the vast unknown feel of it. It's there's millions of worlds out there that you've never explored that've got unimaginable stuff on them, and you're just this tiny little speck that can only see or can only experience a tiny fraction of it. Like, that's kind of existential horror right there.
Right.
What's the next one? Daniel Monroe says, "Just want to say thanks, Drinker. My novel gets released this autumn." Nice one, man. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You didn't tell me what your novel's actually called, though. But says, "Your vids helped me understand plots and character arcs. Now get back to talking about one of my favorite films. Hi, Robert." Yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed our chat about it. And congratulations getting published. Alex A says, "Really looking forward to this one after listening to your breakdown of the second movie with Danquish. Keep up the great work and have a cold one on me." Thank you. This is
nice.
particularly cold, but I will have one. Mexican Iron Man says, "Two of my favorite YouTubers. Oh, happy day between Critical Drinker and Rob. I'm addicted to this intellectual sci-fi analytical crack. Keep the analysis coming. Hail Critical Drinker and hail Rob. Greetings from South Carolina."
Well, I love South. I spent a summer in South Carolina once, in Greenville and then Myrtle Beach. I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've never been there myself, I'm afraid, so I want to go one day. ActionCom says, "Alien and The Thing have characters that never talk about their backgrounds, yet they have distinct personalities. How did the filmmakers accomplish this?" Good question.
Yeah, it's great writing.
Yeah, great writing and great casting. Getting character actors that are really distinct and really interesting just to look at and give great performances. Yeah, that combination of things just allows you to like pick people out immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely that. Lazy Ninja TV says, "What I like about these movies, people, is that they feel like normal people, or they belong in their environment. In the new films, everybody looks like models. I can't relate to them." Yeah, that's it.
No,
in a nutshell, that's modern cinema. That's the problem that we've got. Everyone just looks like they came off an assembly line.
I totally feel that. It's funny. It's not a great movie, even though I'm fond of it. Jaws 2. If you look at Jaws 2, the teenage characters in that film are all kind of goofy looking, and even the hot girl she looks realistically hot. She doesn't look like came from central casting and they found the most beautiful people possible. And I think that's a real problem. I think the way people look has become like, if you look at in the 70s, that's when the rise of people like Roy Scheider and Gene Hackman. I mean, yeah, you had Robert Redford and Paul Newman. They were very handsome men, but the other Dustin Hoffman, the people that were starring in these movies were not the most beautiful people in the world. They were handsome and pretty, but they looked real. They look like real. And that, I think, is one of the biggest drawbacks to movies and TV, is that everybody looks like they're models. And it's so weird.
Well, I mean, I can't describe it any better than just saying they all look today like actors.
Yes.
Whereas
that's exactly right.
Yeah, whereas you got people like in Alien, they don't look like actors. They look like real people because they're not particularly good looking. A lot of them are older looking. I mean, even Sigourney Weaver, she's 29, I think, in this when she shot it. She looks older than that.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that she's bad looking or anything, but she looks like a regular person would do. She's not like flawless.
Yeah, she looks, I mean, she's a beautiful woman, but she looks like she's normal. She looks like she lives in the real world. Yeah. And also she's not glammed up. Like you said, the characters haven't changed their clothes and or they've been hanging. They're just grungy clothes. It's not like they have a laundromat on board the Nostromo.
Yeah,
what
but
are you gonna
everyone's kind of sweaty and
do? Yeah,
it's just all that stuff. You get to see all of it, and it's just it's kind of what people would be like in that situation because
Yep.
you're under pressure. Like it's probably a hot, sweaty environment. It's just that's how you kind of look. And I think today there's an attempt to dress everything up and make everyone look wholesome and nice and just gorgeous in every situation. That's not how you would be, really.
Right.
What's the next one? The Gay Rascal says, I was 16 when I saw Alien in 1979. My fingernails dug so deep into the armrests of the seat, I've been dragging that theatre seat around ever since. It's a tense movie. Trenton Quinn says, still remember watching 1 and 2 with my dad on Halloween back when I was 10. I was so glad that the series ended there and hasn't been sullied ever since. We all wish that. We all really do.
Yes, we do.
Just 2 movies would have been perfect. We don't need anything beyond that. Paul Colton says, I read the novelization and... Shit. Sorry, I just pulled my own headset out there. I read the novelization and Ripley asked Lambert if she'd ever slept with Ash, so that was an interesting implication. She suspected Ash was sketchy.
Interesting.
Charlie Voos says, have you ever seen Tremors 2? Almost as good as Tremors and my personal favorite. After that, they're crap, but 2 was a gem like the original. 2 was when they got the ass blasters, I believe. I quite liked it. I like Burt in it. I like when he fires his sniper rifle that just like penetrates like vehicles and buildings and everything, and it shoots right through the engine of the vehicle they need to escape in. That was quite cool. But yeah, I still think the first one is an excellent movie, and I've referenced it as like a great example of brilliant, efficient, tight screenwriting. In that, the first 10 minutes tells you everything you need to know about everybody.
You're absolutely right. Really well done. I recently just rewatched that with the new release that Arrow put out. It has lost none of its power.
People are saying the ass blasters are in the 3rd movie. So what's in the 2nd one? Screamers, I think. Yeah, screamers. Yeah, so they see by heat as opposed to hearing vibrations in the ground. But yeah, screamers. That's the one. What's the next one? Finbar White says, first 2 Aliens are good films as they're good because they both have a simple premise, no pretensions, and great acting. Keep up good work. Enjoy your channel. Thank you. John Gibson says, the thing that amazes me about this movie is that it doesn't look aged. Most 70s and 80s sci-fi looks really old. Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying there. Like all the set design, the production design and everything, it just looks very practical, very believable, very real. And I feel like they probably just like stole bits out of like aircraft and stuff to make the sets.
Yeah.
It just looks like that kind of environment. Yeah, there's lots of switches and everything. It all looks quite believable, I suppose. Scutter's Dude Sam says, thank you for talking about my favorite film. It turns 42. Christ, is it that old?
Yeah, I think it turned 42. When did it come out? In May, this month. So it'd be 42 this month, right?
42.
I think.
Damn, man. Yet it still holds up so well. Love that it still inspires people. Yeah.
May 25th, it opened on Star Wars Day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, if you're in any way passionate about horror movies or sci-fi or both, then absolutely you have to see Alien if you haven't already. CP the Nerd says, well, drinkers by making me buy another Blu-ray. Yeah. Get this on Blu-ray. It'll be awesome. So that they can't edit it. Canon Valderall says, drinker, Highland, Lowland, Isla, Campbelldown, or Speyside. Cheers. I think Isla is generally considered the better of the whiskies. You'll get like the really smoky ones because they use a lot of peat in their fermentation process. So that's kind of like the proper good ones. I've got a thing about Speyside whiskies though. They've got a more delicate flavor to them, and you don't put any water into Speyside whiskies because they're quite like smooth, easy going as it is. So yeah. Spaceids are a bit of a favorite of mine, I have to admit. What's the next one? Trenton Quinn says, how much do I have to pay to get Robert to do the voice work for Drinker's audiobooks? The man's got a voice that would convey passion from a tax form.
See, I love the Drinker's voice in his videos. I that's why I love listening to you.
I'm sorry I'm a bit more sober tonight, but whenever I do live streams, I have to sober up a little bit because otherwise I wouldn't be able to manage the thing and I wouldn't be able to read. Cameron Vassy says, take a shot on me. All right, I will. Thank you, Cameron Vassy. Douglas A. Burton says, the first glimpse of the interior of the ship was the first time I felt both truly amazed but truly wanted the crew out of there. Yeah. It doesn't look like the kind of place you'd want to spend a lot of time in, put it that way. Mr. Surman says, the last movie I seen that I felt claustrophobic was Underwater. It was cool that it was like Cthulhu. I haven't seen Underwater, actually, so I don't know.
I haven't either, and I keep hearing, I heard it wasn't good when it first opened, but people keep telling me it's pretty good, and I think I will, I'll check it out.
Yeah, maybe give that a go then. Todd Michael... Fuck, I can't pronounce this surname. Janisuski says, Drinker, it's so fucking alien I don't understand. Prometheus/Covenant, hold my beer, let me ruin that for you. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Prometheus is probably the best looking bad science fiction movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, the cinematography is fantastic. Like as people have said, like it's well made shit, but it's still shit.
I just don't understand. I don't understand. I've watched the Blu-ray Charlie de Lauzirika's documentary on that movie. It's like 4.5 hours long on the making of it. You can see where they brought in Damon Lindelof, and it all went to hell. Then the writing all went to hell. Yeah,
funny that. Hey, was he not the guy who did like the end of Lost when he was responsible for tying it up?
Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know, really.
Yeah, it's very depressing.
OMG Puppies says, I saw this in premiere night in LA. Nobody knew anything about the movie. The trailer gave absolutely no information. The audience was traumatized. A woman sitting next to me was crying. We were completely unprepared for it.
By the way, the trailer for Alien is one of the great trailers of all time in terms of showing you things but not telling you anything.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
Is there not a lot of like Ripley running through corridors and stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And then when they did the Aliens trailer, they emulated that first Alien trailer. So they really knew what they were doing.
No, that's good. Like that's really good. Stubble McShave says, I love the Lovecraftian aspects of the unknowable horrors of the xenomorph that has been diminished by later movies where they explain it to death. Yeah. Exactly like I was saying. There's a real in horror. I think there's one of the fundamental elements of it is the unknown and the mystique of what you're dealing with. And once you remove that and you just explain everything that you're up against, it's not scary anymore because it just becomes this tangible thing that you can grapple with. What's the next one? Carmen Newton says, good morning, Drinker, you suave, sophisticated, forward-thinking gentleman. Any day that starts with your buttery voice is going to be a good one. Thank you. Oh my God, it's so buttery. Pain Cabal 1 says, Harry Dean Stanton's first word to Scott said, I don't like sci-fi or monster movies. Scott laughed and convinced him saying it would be a thriller. Fair enough. Douglas Burton says, my dad let me watch this when I turned 10. I was already scared, and that night I had a freaking mouse in my room during winter. The sounds of that damn mouse moving around scared me on the most primal level possible. Brilliant. Andy Lynn says, my two favorite guys to listen to, there wouldn't be an Event Horizon without Alien, which is one of my favorite films, and you guys should review, but also no Alien without Geiger. Yeah, very much so.
No, it's true. I like Event Horizon. I don't think it's perfect, but I like it.
I really enjoyed it, yeah. I did a review on it back in the day. And I love the blending of like supernatural and sci-fi.
Yeah,
you don't
very
get it very
cool.
often.
No.
I love the production design. I love the interior of the ship.
Yep.
I love the really gruesome, over the top kind of horror scenes that you get.
I loved it. Yeah.
I wish we'd get the director's cut, but they'll never be
They
able to
can't. They
release
can't
it.
find the negatives of all
Yeah,
that stuff. I mean, they hired like porn actresses and stuff to shoot all that.
yeah.
Man, I want to
The
see that.
Oh man, yeah. The interviews I've read about the sort of second unit stuff that they did just sounded wild, man.
Yeah, I know. Like, wow.
Anytime you bring in amputees and porn actors like to shoot the same scene, you know you're onto a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, I must run.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you. This was such a treat. Thank you for reaching out to stream with you again. As I said, we can go. Apparently we're on a 1979 kick. We did motion picture, Star Trek the motion picture. Now we do this. We should do Dawn of the Dead, another movie that came out in 79.
An excellent horror movie. I really like that one.
I know it's one of my favorites of all time.
Definitely. But yeah, man. Honestly, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. I'm sorry we left it so long.
But I have to say that again, you are one of my favorite YouTubers, and I certainly enjoy your critical analysis. I think it's essential for anybody who likes storytelling or who wants to work in storytelling to listen to your cogent analysis of and breakdowns of why stories work and why they don't.
Thank you very much, sir. The link to Robert's channel is in the description, and honestly, I heartily recommend that everyone subscribe to him because he does some great insights into movie making, storytelling. You also do fully articulated with Az versus Babyface.
Yes.
So yeah, but please give him a follow and a subscribe. And yeah, I very much appreciate you coming on again, man.
Az might have something for you.
What's that? Sorry?
Az might have something for you.
Oh,
but I'll leave that up to him.
Okay.
To tell you.
All right. Well, I'm intrigued.
Well, this would be the last survivor of the Nostromo signing off.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I'll see you shortly. We'll do this again.
All right. Cool, mate. Thank you very much. All right. Well, it's just me, so I'm going to do my best to entertain everyone who's left. So I'm going to try and get through the remaining super chats here. What's the next one? The Nerdporial Lifeform says, Drinker, are you familiar with Berserk, the manga series? The creator passed before he could finish. Robert Meyer Burnett, I know this is familiar with it. I made a video. Yeah, I heard about this. I'm not too familiar with Berserk as a show, but I had heard about the creator passing away, and yeah, apparently he'd be greatly missed. So yeah, I'll need to give it a watch sometime. Ed Starr says, the stripped-down narrative of Alien, 1979 added to the tension the theatre audience experienced. So engaging, I didn't experience time passing. Cheers, Drinker and RMB. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you very much for the $50 super chat, man. That's awesome. Cheers to you, Ed Starr. Farewell Thunderchild says, not to encourage a pay-to-play ethos. However, I would be happy to give $1,000 to a charity of your choice to do one with you on Dog Soldiers. Oh, man. Yeah, I'll happily do that. I love that movie. Yeah, I need to talk to you after this then, and we'll see if we can sort something out. Can't stay, so we'll catch the upload. Fly hair, by the way. Yeah, thanks. I was outside just before I started this. I was out doing a bunch of stuff, and I think it was basically really windy, and I think my hair's gone super fucking sticking up. And all right, is that better? Is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was. I was really up fucking Guile from Street Fighter. What's the next one? Rico San 13 says, do you the Scottish fighting style? It's called fuck you. Yeah, I'm an expert in that. Every Scottish person is. It's called drunken fighting. Stephen Lanuto says, fucking cat, honestly. The drinker at his part-time job at the pet shop where it spilled his Taliskers. Yeah. Cats are just assholes, man. They just cause nothing but problems. Look at Jonesy in this movie. He basically got the entire crew of the Nostromo killed. What's the next one? Stretchy Hulk says Roger Ebert had a rule called Stanton Walsh rule, stating that no movie with Harry Dean Stanton or Emmett Walsh could be altogether bad. It's true. Alien is a good movie anyway, but he adds so much to the proceedings. Cheers. Yeah, fantastic character actor. I just, love him in this. He's just one of those guys you can't stop looking at. Just got a really interesting features. It's hard to describe. What's the next one? Lou the Toilet says, I found channel by accident, have now binged too much. There's no such thing as too much, drinker. But I'm glad you've enjoyed it anyway, man. Proman1 says, it was like the alien took Kane's mind. Yeah. Ash even refers to him as Kane's son, which is a weird kind of turn of phrase, but it's almost like implying that the aliens take something of their host with them. Nelson the Gentleman says, Drinker, I made the mistake of Googling pics of you and found a Twitter pic of you with your shirt off. I'm gay now, thanks, asshole. Ailstorm rules. They fucking do, by the way. Watch Fucked with an Anchor. It's the best music video ever. What's the next one? Bobby Tate says, epic show, guys. My wife Mel is a huge Alien fan. One reason is the use of glorious matte shots and models over soulless CGI. Yep, very much so, as we were saying. She wants to know if you chaps think filmmakers should ever start using the old school methods again. I mean, I don't know about Robert, but I'm always going to be in favor of practical effects if you can do it. Use actual pyrotechnics, use models, use miniatures, all that stuff over CGI any day of the week. It's just got so much more weight to it. It's just, you can tell the work that went into it. Whereas with CGI, it's like, that's just what we can do when we've got a team of computer animators. It's just not the same. What's it? Digital Demonic Davros says, no more whiskey for drinker till the director's cut. Well, I'm not going to stand by that. Anne-Marie Evans says, Sigourney, strength and heart, true strong woman. Yep, 100%. She was a great bit of casting for this role. And she managed to make a character that was strong, smart, resourceful, determined, and likable. Who knew that it could be done? Revan1 says, hey drinker, here's one on me. R&B, really enjoy your appreciation of the details in cinema. 70s and 80s versus today sees an ebb in cinematic evolution. Creative novelty stifled by corporate greed via trope. Yep, that sums it up 100%. Can't really add to that, to be honest. Daniel Monroe says, Lambert's death. There's a deleted scene on YouTube where the alien crab walks over to her. Yes, and that's one of the few instances where I wouldn't want to see it. Because I've seen that and it does look a little bit schlocky, a little bit goofy. I'd rather you don't get to see that because I don't want to see the alien in that kind of fully exposed look because it's right out in the open and it's well lit. And I'd rather not see it. Louis DePlanck says, great movie. Glad I caught this stream. Cheers, guys. Thank you. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. Daniel Monroe says, the chill shot is actually from Brett's death scene. Really? I'd have to take your word on that one. Anne Marie Evans says, chest bursting scene. Yes, it's lovely. Tay Kao Yang says, random trivia. In Palo Alto, California, there's a Lambert Avenue that intersects Ash Street and Parker Boulevard. I hope that's true. Please tell me that's true. That's fucking awesome if it is. Canon Falderal says, drinker, have you seen Lilycat? Low budget anime from the 80s clearly takes a lot of cues from Alien. Interesting Japanese twist, better than Alien 4. I mean, to be honest, me shitting on a toilet for like 2 hours would be better than Alien 4. Jesus. Nick B says, thanks for the great stream. I'm watching The Terminator next week in my local cinema. Looking forward to that. God, I wish I could see that in the cinema. Mahler and I did a stream that lasted for hours where we talked about the Terminator movies. Well, at least the first two, the ones that were actually good. And we just loved that film. But I've never seen it in the cinema, so I'm kind of envious that you're going to go and see it and experience it. Latino Slant says, this is an amazing clinic of two lovers of film and brilliant and analytical minds. Cheers to you both. I think Rob does the analytical stuff. I do the drinking stuff. Cheers. What's the next one? I'm going to pass out before I get to the end of this. Sorry, I'm just refreshing my super chats here. Nope. Oh yeah, here it is. Clay Johnson says, as real of a pulse rifle as there is. And he's given me a URL. I won't be able to look at that right now, but I'll take a look at it later. Stretchy Hawk says, when I was 6, I had a movie viewer toy from Kenner, which actually showed scenes from this movie. Really? R-rated violent horror movies sold to kids. The late 70s kind of ruled. Keep up the great work. Awesome, man. Cinetic says, could you see Alien being remade today? And if so, who would you cast as Ripley now? Fucking, I would cast Brie Larson as the alien. But yeah, I can't see them remaking it now. I don't know what kind of group of like really interesting character actors you could cast in this. No, I just wouldn't want to see it remade because they would fuck it up like they do pretty much everything else. John Oakletree says, Alien, classic 70s cinema. They really don't make them like that anymore, Drinker. Another classic is Sorcerer. Yeah, 100% agree. Attic Hatch Sound says, Alien is no Grabbers. It's not, indeed. I haven't seen Grabbers, actually, so I couldn't tell you. Rico San 13 says, how about doing an American Werewolf in London? That is a great horror movie. It's one I'll probably save for October, when it's the season of those things. The Spectre says, hail to the Drinker and whoever this other guy is. The characters in this film are written gender neutral, with the actors told to make them their own, which means we will need to see a movie like this again. Yeah. I just don't feel like they'd have the ability to write a movie like this again, where you're actually doing fair, balanced characters that are well written. Sorry, what's the next one? Yeah, Joseph Dufkuliskis. Sorry if I'm fucking up your name. Apologies. It's a tough one, especially when you're half a bottle down. He says, I like the writing. Like Blade Runner, the scenes build the logic behind events without explaining. Example, why does the alien end up in the shuttle? It's the only place not allowed inventing. I never thought about that, actually. I always just see one of those conceited things where it kind of just subconsciously knew to be there. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense that it went in there to take refuge. Yeah, so that's cool. It's smart writing that doesn't really explain everything to you right off the bat. Stubble McShave says, Aliens is great. The only thing I don't like is that the xenomorphs stop being dangerous monsters in the last 30 minutes and merely become obstacles. Yeah, I think the point there is to show the development of Ripley's character, that she's able to take these things on equal terms now because she's been through so much with them. But yeah, I get the point. Like it goes from horror like fully into action territory at that point. They're just enemies to be overcome. Misun1 says, if you enjoy your games, Alien Isolation is nearly as good as the first Alien movie. Yes, I've heard amazing things about Alien Isolation, and I really need to play it because it sounds awesome. Homerostasis says, Alien is the kind of film you get when you don't treat your audience like children. Exactly. Love your channel. Keep fighting the good fight. I absolutely will. Thank you, man. 42nd Street Matthew says, I actually like Alien 3, the special edition assembly cut at least. If you haven't seen that version, you need to. Vast improvement. Yes, I've heard that that's a big improvement over the theatrical cut. It puts a lot more things into context and explains the aliens a lot better. So, yeah, I'd like to watch that, actually. And maybe I can do a stream on it. Who knows? Ermum says, I love this. Hope you guys do Aliens. I've already done Aliens. I've done it with Danquish. So if you go to my second channel, Critical Drinker After Hours, you can get our live stream of Aliens there. And we covered it in depth. I mean, a lot of fucking depth, like 4 hours or something. Night King 01 says, is it just me or did Yaphet Kotto try to punch the alien before he died? What a legend, RIP. Yeah, he kind of threw himself at it like he was trying to grapple with it or something. I didn't really see him punch it or anything, but he was like, he was trying to overpower it, and clearly it was way stronger than him. But man, he went out like an absolute fucking boss. SMU 16475 says, do you think horror films like Alien, The Exorcist, and Halloween served as templates for similar films that followed them decades later? Yeah, of course they did. Because like films get progressively less imaginative as time goes on. Like these films kind of blaze the trail. Boots the Cat says, have either of you seen the movie Hunter Prey? No, I haven't, I'm afraid. I don't know about Rob, but I haven't seen it, I'm afraid. Primarch Vulcan says, you guys really should watch the director's cut. There's a deleted scene where Ripley discovers a proto-hive in the ship and sees Dallas and Brett. Yeah, we were talking about that briefly earlier. I have seen that deleted scene, and yeah, man, it's fucking horrific. Like, Brett's been pretty much fully turned into an alien egg to be a host for another facehugger, and Dallas is still conscious, so he's like begging Ripley to kill him. So it's really brutal. And I wish they'd kept that scene in the movie because, damn, it's really good. Bloody Bob says, thoughts on Dread 2012? I loved it, and he gave it a drink recommends. Go and see my review. It's right there on my channel. The Spectre says, all of the characters in the original script are simply listed by the last names. Staten cast the best person. Yeah. That's it. They were gender neutral, and they let the actors just do what they would with it. Projects Done Poorly says Sharp TV show next. I did like a really simple review of Sharp back in the day, so you can again find it on my channel. It's like really old. It was back near the beginning, but yeah, I did review Sharp, and I fucking love it. I love shows set in that time period. Daniel Monroe says it's called The Taste Beneath. Sorry, I ran out of typing space. Oh, okay. Yeah, still haven't seen it, so I'll need to look at that. Benjamin Gaskell says, Ripley of the first two films is my vote for greatest heroine in film history. The true bravery and ferocity of the protective mother, just so authentic. Modern feminism is a pale imitation. Yeah, because modern feminism tries to make their female characters into men with boobs. And it doesn't work. It's so fucking fake. Everyone can tell it's fake. And everyone can tell when they like somehow become like magically stronger than men and able to do everything better than them. It's just an absolute like wish fulfillment fantasy. Whereas characters like Ripley were actually believable. So yeah, who knew? They actually got it right back in like 1979. Silo 101 says, do you ever drink rye instead of bourbon? Here in Northern Canada, Jack Daniels is bottom tier whiskey. Log's still kind of expensive here, though. Yeah, I've had Canadian rye whiskey a few times, and I love it. I love the taste of it and stuff. But damn, it gives me a fucking wicked hangover. And it's not often I get a hangover from anything. Like, I just generally don't get them. But there's something about rye whiskey that just doesn't agree with me. So yeah, that's the thing. Josh Portnoy gave me a $1 Canadian dollar super chat, so thank you. Anna Marie Evans says, love the Alien video game on PS1. Was that the Alien Trilogy one? If so, yeah. The graphics weren't quite up to what they wanted to do, but God bless them, they did their best. Alvaro A says, did you ever notice the Nostromo crew is so out of its depth that Dallas smells his finger through the suit after touching the jockey's wound? I didn't actually, no, I never noticed that. But if so, that's pretty funny. Silo 101 says, as a Halo fan, I was quite surprised when I first watched Aliens. I thought Bungie made these designs. Sergeant Apone and Johnson are like the same dude. Yeah, pretty much. I think probably Johnson was modeled after him. And what's awesome is that the guy who played Apone was actually a drill sergeant in the Marines, so he was fully fucking up to date with how they talk to their subordinates, which was just perfect. Aiken says, really enjoyed the both of you teaming up to review Alien. I would love more reviews from you both, movies of your choosing. Well, yeah, we'll definitely do more, because it was great to have Rob back on again, and it's been far too long since I've had him. Bells Nichols says, saw Alien in college, never watched it while high, trust me. Sorry, never watch it while high, trust me. I mean, I've watched it while drunk plenty of times, but yeah, I'll try that one day. Insomniac 101 says, best two storytelling people or the best two people to break down any movie series. Unreal. Good day, lads. Thank you very much, man. And Randomity says, Drinker, our opinions are as aligned as the menstrual cycles of the Themyscira Rotary Club. Well, I'm glad you agree with me, man. Thank you. Homerostasis says, speaking of Lindelof, he also wrote Star Trek Into Darkness. The man leaves a trail of destruction larger than Godzilla. Yeah, fucking perfect example of failing upwards in Hollywood. Awful. Eric G.R. Mandelo Herrera says, Drinker, do a stream to talk about the Warner Brothers classic Lethal Weapon with Nerdrotic as Ryan, Culture Casino, Tom Mead, and Jeff from World Class. Bullshitters because they're fans of Lethal Weapon franchise. Yeah, I've got that scheduled actually. Az and I are definitely going to do it. And we'll see who else we can pull in. But yeah, the Lethal Weapon movies are fucking great. Don Graham says, a lady actress comparable to Ripley now? No, there isn't. There just fucking isn't. We don't have actresses like that anymore. Sorry, they don't have personalities anymore. Walking Talking Stephen Hawking says, just got here. Do you record your videos drunk? Always. I don't do my live streams fully drunk, though. That just gradually builds up over the course of it because I have to be coherent enough to read what people are saying to me. What's the next one? Andre Jones says, seriously, is that a Big Trouble in Little China poster on your shelf? Tip for that alone. Yeah, fucking, that's Big Trouble in Little China is my obsession. And yeah, you can just see it there. Right, perfect. Yeah, I was the happiest day of my life when I got that. Daniel Monroe says, this was the first live chat I joined. Well, I hope it won't be the last. Was amazing, and big shout out to Robert. Sorry for the spam. The Indominus Rex is more tech savvy than me. Have another Jack on me. Thank you, man. And I will have another Jack on you. Thank you. Maximus Timius says, would love to see a happy hour of Braveheart. I'll get there. Don't worry. Paul Seniors says, highly recommend The Raid Redemption. Cheers, Drinker. Love your channel. Yeah, both the Raid movies are fantastic. Love them. The fighting scenes are incredible. And yeah, they're great movies. Night King 01 says, oh, man. I wanted to burp there, but it wouldn't quite come out. I just saw Army of the Dead. I liked the movie fine, but I felt a little let down with the ending. The attempts at emotion fell flat, entertaining still. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to it because that's better. Now I got it out. I do love a good zombie movie. Randomity says, Alien borrowed a lot of visuals and sets from a spaghetti sci-fi movie called Planet of the Vampires. Ridley Scott denies this, however. I'll have to take your word on that, man, because I've not seen that movie. But I've always felt like Ridley Scott's cinematography has been pretty fucking spot on. Kalashnikov says, your wish is granted. Odeon, Edinburgh West, Dunfermline and Dundee are showing Terminator 1 on Monday, the 24th at 7 p.m. Terminator 2 probably next week. Date? Absolutely. I'd love to go and see that at the cinema, actually. Yeah. It's great that like cinemas are reopening here in this country, but there's fuck all to show, so they're just showing these old classics. I'm fully behind that. Love it. Watch The Keep. That's from Frakoff Feldekarb on chat there. Yeah, I've seen it. It's actually a really good movie. It's got that weird sort of dreamlike quality to it, and I'm sure Vangelis did the soundtracks for it, so that pretty much contributes to that. Is that a gun on the table? Yeah, it is actually. It's not a real gun; it's just a fake. So, Andy Gacabo says he has a face. Yeah, I do have a face. Yeah, and it serves me okay. Daniel Monroe says, I have a tip from that burp. I hope you review Train to Busan soon. Yes, I'd love to do Train to Busan. Yeah, I'll try and find the right person to talk about that because that's a fucking great movie. Akush Ahuja says, I still like Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, why shouldn't you? It's a great movie. I really like that concept behind it. It's difficult to do it well without it becoming repetitive, but that movie actually just gets it pretty much spot on. And Emily Blunt, man, fuck, she's perfect in that movie, let me tell you. Darius says Highlander and Willow, happy hour on the list. Cheers, drinker. Yeah, I'd happily do Highlander, actually. Yeah, that is a movie that's long overdue for me to talk about. So yeah, I'll definitely be doing that. And Willow, yeah, man, that's a classic 80s fantasy movie. And it doesn't get talked about nearly enough today. What's the next one? Fake Name says The Critical Belcher. Thanks. I do try my best. I think that's all. That's pretty much it for Super Chats, actually. I'm just looking through chat to see if there's anything else. She's a badass in that film. Yeah, Emily Blunt is badass in that film. But man, she got in shape as well. Chuck Grable says, is that a shotgun or is that a repeater I see on your wall? If so, what caliber? That is, in fact, a shotgun. That is a 410 caliber shotgun that belonged to my granddad, and I inherited it. So, living as I do in the UK, it's deactivated, so they've like welded up the barrel and stuff. But yeah, that thing's at least 100 years old. I'm gonna bring it over. Hold on. All right. So you can see here, yeah, it's designed so that you can break it down like this. So it was so that a poacher could carry it inside his jacket and no one would be able to see it, which is quite a cool little design, actually. So, yeah. It's very light, very easy to carry and stuff, and it's still, like, the mechanism still works. But yeah, you can no longer fire bullets with it, so don't sue me or anything. Yeah, I'm not breaking the law with this one. It's just not a real, like, fireable gun anymore. The critical armor. Don't kill anyone. I won't. You'd be easier enough just shoot, like, hitting someone with that gun as a club. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it as far as super chats and everything go. Yeah, poaching the king's deer, true Scott. Yeah, apparently that was one thing that you could still be shot for, was shooting the king's deer. Yeah. Okay, I think we've made it to the end. Man, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's joined me for this live stream. It's been awesome. I appreciate all the super chats. I appreciate everyone coming in for this. I hope we've put on a good show for you. And yeah, it's been great fun to talk about this really awesome sci-fi horror movie that just absolutely nailed the whole genre like 40 years ago. It's been great. There's one more actually from Frontman242 says, one more video to sum up Disney trashology before we forget its existence. Oh yeah, that'll be coming, don't worry. But yeah. Oh, sorry, another one from Dylan Smith says, my dad said, you like Star Wars, right? And showed me Alien when I was 10. We never got further than the chestburster scene. It took me another 10 years to finish the movie. Another one from Daniel Monroe says, did your internet history look suspect when you were researching for your book, asking for a friend? I've read Redemption. Awesome. No, I was fine. Yeah, I was all legal and above board. I keep my search history private anyway, so no one will ever know. But yeah, man, thank you to everyone. Thanks, honestly, for the super chats. It's been great. Oh man, they keep coming in. Night King 01 says, any plans on doing a review of Army of the Dead? Yes, there is, and I will be doing that. David Knight says, thoughts on Last of the Mohicans? Been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember the finale of that movie being absolutely incredible. It's like almost like a dream the way it's shot. Cinematography is fantastic. The villain is awesome in it, and it's got a really fucking satisfying death to it. Yeah, they're trying to stop me from leaving. Well, I'm going to leave because I'm going to cut this one off now. But yeah, thank you for everyone that's tunes in. It's been an absolute pleasure. But that's all I've got from today. So I'm gonna go away now.